Hello and welcome back to First Thoughts. I'm Simon, and today I'm going to be ranking every single new movie I saw this year. And by this year, I mean last year, 2025.
Well, that was a movie.
I saw 100 movies this past year. Brand new movies to come out that year. I've never done that before. That's a new record high for me, and I probably won't ever do that again, but who knows what 2026 holds. But yes, I also, by the way, I'm going to also be posting the top 25 over on my Simon's Rants channel. So if you only want that, you can go over there and check that. This is going to be quite the long video / podcast, however you digest this content. Or you can always just skip forward if you just want to hear the top ones or whatever. It's funny, actually, I've avoided doing a worst of the year list for a few years now. People really enjoyed those, but I kind of just, it felt like it was in bad taste. But I thought this was a nice middle ground to just talk about every single movie I saw this year and kind of look back at the whole year and kind of put a nice bow on it. So yeah, this is, like I said, 100 movies from 2025 ranked from worst to best. This is my opinion. I know, obviously. Well, if you listen to this podcast, I guess you're used to hearing Justin's input. Obviously, that's not the case here. This is just my opinion. We're gonna disagree, I'm sure, on some things, and that's fine. Also, I may not have seen your favorite or least favorite movie of the year, so I didn't get to talk about it. For example, The War of the Worlds that everybody talked about. I just didn't care to see it, so I didn't. It's not on this list. But I think there's a beauty in the subjectivity of art, so yeah, don't get offended, just leave a comment below letting me know what your favorite movies were. If you want full reviews of any of these movies, there is a link in the description below to a playlist. If you're on YouTube, you can check out that playlist, or if you're on Apple Podcast or Spotify, just go ahead and scroll through the episode list. It will be there because if I saw it, I reviewed it this year. Number 100, Screamboat. Now, Screamboat is from a franchise. If you don't know what it is a parody of Steamboat Willie. It's a horror parody that every time these characters become public domain, immediately somebody turns around and makes a horror movie of it. That's what Screamboat was. And those movies are always rushed, they're low budget, and they're bad on purpose. So it's hard for me to know how to rank it, because, yes, it is terrible, but it is trying to be terrible. So where do you put it on the list? So I just put it in last place because it is so bad it's good, but it's also just really bad. I actually ended up seeing another so bad it's good movie later on in the year, and I put that higher up on the list because I actually really enjoyed it. This movie, there was nothing really to enjoy about it other than how bad it was. It wasn't entertaining, it was just awful. So last place you go, Screamboat. Thanks for coming. Number 99. Snow White. The first movie on this list attempting to be good, I assume, and just utterly failing. Snow White was directed by Mark Webb and is starring Rachel Ziegler, and the movie is just, everybody knows, it was a total miss. You know, the music is bad, the acting is bad, the CGI is rushed and sloppy looking, the story is convoluted, and they went back and changed a million things in post-production because they wanted to dramatically change the story. Then some of that got leaked and shown in trailers, and people didn't want that, and so, yeah, I don't need to say a lot about it. It was just an utter clusterfuck the entire time, and also bad publicity surrounding it, and just, some really silly writing with, oh, she's Snow White because it was snowing when she was born. That makes sense, right? Sure, okay. Number 98. Highest to Lowest. Highest to Lowest was directed by Spike Lee and is starring Denzel Washington and Jeffrey Wright. And it is a remake of an older movie that doesn't really matter too much because I never saw it. I was just watching this movie going, holy shit, this is terrible. It was something that I do really enjoy a good score. I notice when music in movies is really good. But when the music in movies isn't very good, I don't typically pick up on that. I'm not really, it's not the same thing as like bad camera work or bad acting. I just don't notice it. I don't care enough, I guess, typically. This was the exception. The entire movie, the soundtrack was about a collection of 4 or 5 what sounded like royalty-free songs just on repeat and just pasted into this movie indiscriminately. It didn't seem to fit any of the scenes. and just overall a nonsensical plot, terrible writing, terrible directing, and terrible acting. And all of that doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering who made it. Spike Lee is obviously a very notable director, and Denzel is one of the best actors alive. So how did that happen? I genuinely don't know. It's just everything about this movie is completely bad. Everything is wrong. In fact, I would say maybe this is a worse movie than Snow White, but I put Snow White lower because it feels sacrilegious. It feels like an insult to the memory of the original. And maybe if I'd seen the movie that Highest to Lowest was based on, I would feel the same way, but I didn't. And I just went, wow, what an incredibly bad movie. Number 97, Ella McKay. Yeah, I just talked about this one. This was the only movie this year, and one of only 2 movies in my entire life that I've seen in theaters and walked out of at a certain point. I should say I did walk back in, but I really didn't want to. So there was about a half an hour that I missed because I couldn't stand the movie. I walked out into the lobby and stared at the wall instead. But then I came back in to see the ending because I figured I had to. But then I didn't even review it right away. I waited until my 2025 catch up to talk about it. But it's just, this is another movie that is, everything's kind of a miss from the writing, directing, and acting standpoint. It's not as objectively bad when it comes to technical stuff like Highest to Lowest. I don't really remember any technical things wrong with it, but it's just completely alienating the audience with bad acting, bad writing, bad humor. Like I said in my review of it, it is a comedy, and I genuinely didn't know that. That's not me just saying, wow, what a bad, unfunny movie. I'm saying I legitimately couldn't tell that it was a comedy until I looked it up on IMDb, and that's what it was listed as. That is impressively bad. Number 96, Eleanor the Great. This movie, I didn't walk out of the theater, but I walked all around the theater. I was legitimately so frustrated and so much nervous energy watching this movie because I was so irritated by it that I got up. The theater was empty besides me and Justin, by the way, so it's fine. I sat in just about every seat in the theater. I stood in the back, stood in the front. I literally walked up to the screen and just stared at it like that, just to see if any angle could possibly reveal it being good in any way. And I'm sorry, because this was directed by Scarlett Johansson, and I'm a huge, huge fan of Scarlett Johansson, and I don't think the directing was necessarily what was wrong with this movie. I think everything else was. It was just such a bizarre, weird little story about a character that's so unlikable and irredeemable that I couldn't really possibly gain any sympathy for her. And then the fact that the movie paints her in such a schmaltzy light, trying to make her story sappy, and they seem to think she's redeemable and she's just not. Obviously even go as far as to title the movie Eleanor the Great. She's not great, she's awful. And this movie was pretty frustrating to watch. I couldn't stand it. Number 95, Waltzing with Brando. This is another one that I just watched in my catch-up video, and it's also fairly irredeemable. I will say, Billy Zane, who plays Marlon Brando in this movie, is the best thing about it. There is at least one good thing you can say about the movie, and it's him. Not that he's great, he's fine. He looks a lot like Marlon Brando. He doesn't have a great impression, but at least he looks like him, so that's something. Everything else about this movie also feels very confused. This movie is based on a book that's based on the true story of this architect going to meet with Marlon Brando about building this big hotel thing on his private island, and because I guess the book is told from a first-person perspective, it's got a narration from the author, this movie decides to make John Heater, who's playing the architect, narrate the movie within the scenes where he's on the plane and he turns to look at the camera and talk, or they just found what they think is a dead body and so he turns to talk to the camera about it. It's just so cringy. It's so Disney Channel. It's like, hi, I'm John Heater and you're watching Disney Channel. Ooh, look, a dead body. It's just, tonally, this movie makes no sense. Plot-wise, this movie just doesn't work because I have to ask constantly throughout the movie, what's the point of any of this? And I never really felt like I got an answer back. It's just remarkably unfunny, even though it tries to be, and the dramatic moments are constantly being undercut by unfunny humor. It doesn't work. Number 94, 28 Years Later. Of course, so 28 Years Later is the third installment in the 28 fill-in-the-blank franchise. It's about zombies, sort of, not really. They're, rage monsters or whatever you want to call them. The whole franchise has been, a commentary using these zombie-like things to make points about society and people in society. And this movie tries to continue that trend, but doesn't seem to have anything really real to say. But the commentary is the least of your worries. The biggest worry is, well, maybe one of two things. The plot just being really uninteresting and unimpressive. I mean, you've got some really bizarre choices as far as Power Rangers or Teletubbies, whatever you want to call them, flipping around and doing weird stuff. And then you can also throw in the nauseating filming style of and editing of this movie. They made a big deal about how so much of it, if not all of it, was filmed on an iPhone, and it's like, it looks terrible, so maybe just use a normal camera next time. And then they do this really bizarre version of bullet time where it's just a bunch of pictures anytime the zombie gets shot, and it's headache inducing. It looks so bad. It's so ugly. It is the ugliest movie I saw this year, and I could not stand watching it. I genuinely got a headache, and nothing about the movie's plot made up for that in any way. And also, on top of that, the zombies have giant dicks, and they're just... they're funnier than they are scary. The zombies in this are so lame. Number 93, Shelby Oaks. So Shelby Oaks, if you are online at all, you know this is the directorial debut of YouTuber Chris Stuckman. And boy oh boy did everybody online let you know what they thought of Chris Stuckman, me included. Yeah, I don't feel like I need to beat that dead horse anymore. I think it's cool when people try to pursue their passions. Some people just need to know when to admit they're not good at certain things. And I will say Chris Stuckman is an okay director. He is one of the worst writers to ever make a film, though, apparently. And this whole movie is derivative. Everything that is remotely interesting or good about it was copied from something a million times better. And then there's just awful fill-in, connect-the-dot moments that are genuinely Stuckman, I guess, that he came up with that are awful. And then just the acting is phoned in, especially by Keith David, who just clearly did not want to be there. It's just, I don't know, one of the most boring, frustrating horror movies I've ever seen, because not only is it bad and derivative and boring, it's also paid for by a bunch of subscribers that were loyal to a person, and I just feel like, when you've got millionaires asking other people to pay for their stuff, their vanity projects for them, that's going to make me take an extra couple points off too, because that's just kind of like icky. Number 92, Honey Don't. Ethan, please, whatever happened between you and your brother, just start working together again. You clearly need each other, so please stop making movies by yourself. They are god-awful. This movie is a very small step up from the previous movie before that, but it's not good. It really feels rushed. It doesn't have any sensible plot points to it. It just feels like everything happens because necessity. Like nothing has a logical pattern to it. It's just this happened because it had to happen, and that's frustrating to watch. Also, you've got a lot of actors phoning it in as well in this, Aubrey Plaza especially. I will say Chris Evans is good in this movie, but he's not in it enough to carry it. And yeah, I've never seen a less entertaining mystery than this. Like, the mystery shouldn't even really count as a mystery, because it's just kind of like hinting at there being a mystery, and then they don't actually do any sort of real mystery. It's just kind of people wandering around, having sex and taking phone calls. And I've read that these movies that they're making together, him and Margaret Qualley, are an attempt to make Margaret Qualley's character into, like, these badass versions of, like, back in the day, male roles, like Sean Connery, where he's gonna smoke a cigarette, he's gonna fuck your bitch, and then he's gonna shoot you. And it's like, okay, so having an old, out-of-date, misogynistic role now becomes cool when a woman does it because feminism. Sure, you sound completely out of touch and stupid. Number 91, Superman. Yeah, this is probably going to be the first one on this list to really piss people off. 28 years later, may as well. There's always going to be stuff that's contentious that I say, but here we are. Yeah, I could not stand this movie. I hate James Gunn's superhero universe style. I have never been a fan. I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy. A lot less than other people, but I enjoyed it, okay? But everything he's done since, haven't been a fan of. I thought the Suicide Squad was garbage. And this, similarly, is garbage. Not because it's outright terrible filmmaking. Once again, there's nothing, like, technically wrong. But, like, it's just always focused on humor over importance, you know? And then it tries to make, like, powerful moments that are supposed to mean something. But the conversations between Superman and Pa Kent fall flat. Him saving a squirrel rather than human lives is just so try-hard, it's silly and stupid. And then the action is cartoony and uninteresting. It just looks like CGI vomit. And then the movie just, I don't know. It didn't feel like Superman to me. And no, I'm not a Henry Cavill, Zack Snyder fanboy. I don't think those movies are perfect either. I don't think either feel like Superman in a lot of ways. He doesn't remotely remind me of that Superman I grew up listening to on the radio on cassette tapes, because that's how I got my Superman. It wasn't the other movies, although I did watch Christopher Reeve and some of the cartoons. My Superman is the old radio show, and this movie felt like an insult to that character that I knew and loved as a kid. Number 90. Freakier Friday. Speaking of betraying characters, Freakier Friday just, it felt like such a misstep, such a mistake when it came to how they developed these characters and chose how they would be 20-some years later. Killing off a husband off screen that we never saw or even heard the name of, having the whole first movie end up being about her ending up with this guy who now is estranged and they never ended up together, and just adding in pointless characters and subplots that only bogged down this movie. This should have been such an easy movie to make, and they just failed on every front because they overthought everything. The humor is overthought, the plot is overthought, and it's all just, I don't know, overcrowded, overstuffed, boring, and confusing. How do you make a Freaky Friday movie confusing? It just feels like it takes effort to mess it up that bad. Number 89, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Speaking of betraying characters, making one of the sole survivors from the original story have some bullshit reason to turn around and be a bad guy. It must have been Freddie Prinze Jr.'s idea just so he could die off and never come back. But, like, wow, what a dumb decision. It's just a complete betrayal of the characters. It's a complete betrayal of the films that came before. And it just doesn't make any sense because the reasons they give, I don't buy. So, yeah, this movie had some entertaining moments. Some of the kills are okay. The mystery... Okay, no, the mystery was bad. I predicted most of it. It's just, I don't know. Man, this movie isn't terrible, but what makes it really bad to me is that betrayal of a character. How do you do that? How do you do that? That doesn't make any sense. You can't just turn around and make the hero of a previous movie now the villain of this one. I mean, okay, yes you can. There can be plots that are written where a character turns evil, you know, but, like, it has to make sense. The motivation has to be there. It has to feel real. And there have to be reasons that you can understand this character and feel sorry for them in some way, but still mad at them. Like, but they didn't do any of that. They just went, oh yeah, he's evil now. Sucks to suck, I guess. And yeah, what an awful disappointment of a movie. I guess disappointment isn't fair because I don't know that anybody expected it to be good. But yeah, no, it certainly wasn't. Number 88, Jurassic World Rebirth. Now, I actually heard this from somebody recently, but what does the rebirth in this title even signify? Nothing is being reborn in this movie that has nothing to do with the plot. Are you talking about it's a rebirth of the franchise? Because you shouldn't title it that. That's like saying, like, Jurassic World, another new trilogy starting now. Okay? But yeah, also, speaking of, by the way, franchises that are just insulting themselves at this point. What an insult, man, to Spielberg and everything he did. Also, Michael Crichton, the author of the books. These movies just keep getting dumber and dumber and dumber. And now they are so, I wanted to say gentrified. I don't know if that's an appropriate thing to say. But this movie is so censored where you can't, like, show any blood. You can't show any real visceral death. Like, there's barely anything that makes these movies resemble the original in any way anymore. Like, the original had snappy dialogue, it had realistic characters, it had grisly deaths and intense moments. This movie has flat characters you've seen a million times, and it's got stupid, cheesy dinosaurs that you're supposed to root for, that because they're cute, they're baby Yodas, and then you've got deaths that are so generic and boring that a toddler could watch it and not be scared. It's so lame. It's so boring, and it's so stupid that they don't even bother explaining how the good guys survived at the end. They just miraculously did, and we'll never talk about it again. Wow, that's really, really stupid. Number 87. The Last Showgirl. Now, this is probably the first genuine disappointment for me on this list. I guess I wanted 28 Years Later to be good. I don't know if I expected it to be, but I had hoped it would be. The trailer was pretty good. This was the first movie, though, that I had actual legitimate hopes for, that this could be maybe a top 20 or 30 movie of the year, because it's a Gia Coppola, from the, obviously the Coppola family, and I hadn't seen anything by her before, but, the Coppolas typically make good things. And it's starring Pamela Anderson in this perfect, like, for her swan song role, where it's like talking about this woman who used to be the most beautiful woman in the world, and now she's past her prime, and she's dealing with complex relationships, and she doesn't know how to handle all of that, and also feels like she's the last of a dying breed, and feels like the world's passed her by, and she doesn't recognize it anymore. That sounds so easy. That sounds like a slam dunk. That sounds like a perfect casting, a perfect movie, a perfect way to, like, make Pamela Anderson rocket to stardom again and, like, have this redemption arc where she could, like, be nominated for an Oscar, maybe even win one, and everybody would think of her differently now and be like, wow, look at her. She's not just a pretty face. She's also extremely talented and thoughtful. And then it's just one of the worst scripts I've ever seen, and they just really needed a couple of rewrites because they didn't do anything remotely interesting or good with this plot. And ultimately, I hate to say it, but and maybe it was partially the dialogue's fault, but Pamela Anderson just wasn't good in this movie. And having seen her in another movie this year that I'll get to later, I can see she can act. So either it's just bad directing or writing or something, so you wasted this perfect opportunity, which really pisses me off, because it's like, swan songs are like my jam, man. Like, they're my favorite thing. Like, Limelight is my favorite Charlie Chaplin movie, because I just love to see a fading star reflecting on what once was. Memories from Cats, one of my favorite musical songs of all time, because, like, that's just, it hits home so well, and I love that, and this movie was just such a wasted opportunity because it was so poorly made, and I really don't feel like it was Pamela Anderson's fault. Like I said, her acting wasn't great, but I don't know if I entirely blame her for that. So, yeah, this movie just made me feel depressed for Pamela Anderson, because I was like, this was a shot at something special, and now it's going to be completely forgotten to time, and nobody's going to care about it. What a waste. Number 86, Wicked for Good. Yeah. I liked the first Wicked, okay? I legitimately liked the first Wicked, and I was hopeful that this movie would be good. But when I reviewed the first one, I said in that, what more are we going to do with this plot? Because I feel like the plot should be wrapping up soon, like 15, 30 more minutes and this plot's done. But there's supposedly a whole nother 2-hour movie coming out. What are they going to do? Turns out, a whole lot of nothing. And sure, it turns out I did my research. That's just the stage musical. The musical, not good in the second half. But I'm sorry, that leads to a bad movie. So maybe it's not the filmmaker's fault, but this movie just wasn't good. The music isn't as good as the first half. The The script is awful. Like, the plot, nonsense. Absolute nonsense that just is boring too. It's so dragged out. It's so long for no reason. I feel like this whole 2 hour and 17-minute movie could have been about 45 minutes to an hour. I don't know why it's not. And then just like, I don't know, I guess I kind of just got over the whole thing, maybe, or maybe the humor is just not as good, but like the humor didn't work for me. And maybe it's because of the rest of the movie was bad out too, but like, I don't know. This movie was a huge, huge disappointment. Number 85, Karate Kid Legends. Now, yeah, this movie isn't good at all either, but the reason I put it ahead of some of these other movies that maybe it's worse than is, man, I just love Jackie Chan. And I love seeing, it's one of those things where the nostalgia bait, it worked on me a little bit, where you're seeing, the two worlds collide. Not that I was a really big Karate Kid with Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith. I think I saw that movie once, but I am nostalgic for Jackie Chan. And then I'm nostalgic for the original Karate Kid, and so seeing those worlds collide together, it was entertaining, and I did enjoy that. Now, that was purely the only reason why I enjoyed this movie, other than a couple of small acting performances. I think I remember saying that I liked the love interest in this movie. I forget her name. Sadie Stanley. I liked her in this. I thought, for the most part, the cast was okay in this film. But, like, the plot, once again, and I hate to keep repeating myself about these things, but a lot of them have the same issues. The plot is just too complicated for no reason. Like, we've got, like, this whole thing about him, the main character, entering in this competition, but then also the love interest's dad is trying to compete in his own boxing redemption arc thing, and then people get mad at each other and stop talking and refuse to talk, because that always happens in arguments in movies. I couldn't care less about any of that. I really genuinely couldn't. But I enjoyed seeing Jackie Chan and the original Karate Kid do some stuff. That was fun. But that was it. It was about 15 minutes of this movie I enjoyed. Number 84, Song Sung Blue. Now, I do have to give credit to Kate Hudson and Hugh Jackman in this movie. They were both good. I think Kate Hudson especially was very good in this movie at times. But this movie, one, is based on a true story that just isn't really worth telling. I'm sorry, I don't know who cares about this, but not me. And two, the story was so boring that they fabricated half of it. And I hate that. I hate true story movies that are based on lies. Because it's like, if it was worth telling the story, then just tell the story. And if it's not worth telling the story, then just write a fictional movie. Why are we pretending stuff happened to real people? It's dishonest, and I don't like it. So, no, this movie's not great. Maybe I'm a little bit harsher on it than I should be because of that. But yeah, it genuinely annoyed me because I'm like, what are we doing here? Just tell either the real, true story, or don't tell it at all. What are we doing? Number 83, Ballerina. Are you a fan of the John Wick franchise? Well, then here you go. Here's another one. But I know Keanu Reeves, his fighting style is really impressive, and he puts a lot of effort into that. I mean, Keanu Reeves is essentially a stuntman at this point. But that gets boring. Don't you want to see a little girl just throw grenades and use flamethrowers on people? Isn't that more fun? No? Does that kind of defeat the whole point of the franchise? Oh well, we've got really bad writing, patented bad John Wick writing to make up for that, so it's okay. Yeah, I mean, the John Wick franchise has never been good when it comes to, like, actual filmmaking, like, storytelling. The plots are silly, the dialogue is terrible, the acting is always bad. That's a given in any John Wick film. What makes John Wick entertaining, if you're into that, is, yeah, Keanu Reeves does some fucking shit. Like, he's off the walls insane when it comes to this kind of stuff. He's awesome. So what we do instead is make a movie about Ana de Armas, who, I mean, sure, Ana de Armas is fun to watch, but like, she's not convincing as a fighter like that. I don't buy it. And so, yeah, it's not the same. And you took out the best thing about the franchise to make this installment, and what's left? Everything else, which is already subpar, like I said. So, yeah, when there's a franchise that there's only one central good thing about, and you take that out, shocker, it's not gonna be good. Number 82, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I get exhausted even trying to think about what to say about this movie because it's so nothing, you know? It's not scary, it's not interesting, there's no logic behind the plot, the actors don't want to be there, and the movie itself doesn't know what it wants to be. It wants to be everything. It wants to be a movie for toddlers, and it wants to be a movie for adults that are fans of the game. And it can't decide. So what you end up with is something that isn't good for kids, but isn't scary for adults. It's just a mess in the middle. And the plot is so asinine that even if you know the lore, you're probably still rolling your eyes at it. But as somebody who's not familiar with the lore, you just can't help but do anything but laugh at how dumb it is. All the decisions are stupid by all of the characters, and they're just adding more and more. Like, the first movie was already too complicated. All I wanted was some robots to come to life and try to kill you. But instead, we get, you know, him trying to kill people, and then demon ghost children, and then now we've got even more, and then we've got this new ghost demon thing, and then we've got another psychotic weirdo guy, and it's just like, how many people do we need involved in this before it's gonna pop? So no, it's not entertaining, it's not scary, it's not funny, it's not fun. So what is it? There's nothing. It doesn't fill any box. It just tries to be everything but doesn't commit to anything. So it's just a lot of nothing. Number 81, Until Dawn. Yeah, speaking of video game adaptations, this one is even less accurate of an adaptation than Five Nights at Freddy's, because I swear they heard the title of Until Dawn and then just wrote whatever the hell they wanted. It has nothing to do with the game, barely anything at all. To say it's an adaptation is a reach, it's a stretch, and so that just feels insulting to the source material. But then, not only that, they didn't bother doing anything interesting. They just ended up making a pretty much generic movie instead. I will say there's a couple of semi-interesting things about it, because in this movie, every time you die, you wake up again and have to try to get out of this hotel thing again, and each time they do, it switches up the genre of horror, like the subgenre. It's like, oh, it's a slasher film. Oh, now it's a ghost witch thing. Now it's this, now it's that. That's interesting in theory, but it's not good, because it's, once again, it's not committing to any one idea. And that's really frustrating, because you see snippets of really good ideas, good moments, but they don't commit to any of that. And ultimately, the one thing they do commit to is being bizarre, just absolutely batshit crazy. Because, and it's the most entertaining thing about this movie, for whatever reason, in this movie, if you drink water, you just spontaneously explode. And people are aware of this and just don't seem to care, or don't seem to, like, the bad guy knows about this, but then just blatantly leaves his cup uncovered. Like, dude, if I was living in a world where if any water that came into my body would make me explode, I'd probably have a lid on my cup. You know what? I probably wouldn't even have a cup. I'd wait to drink at home. Like, I wouldn't drink on the job. You know? Like, that just seems basic sense. So, yeah, no, it's absolutely bonkers. It's really silly. That makes it entertaining in a way. And you'll see that pattern coming up soon, where there's some movies here that they're entertaining, but not for the right reasons. This movie fits into that category. Number 80, Flight Risk. Yeah, this movie also is absolutely insane and entertaining for the wrong reasons, because Mark Wahlberg, I guess, just got bored one day and said, how about I do the most off-the-walls performance of my life? And by the way, I want to be bald for some reason. But yeah, I mean, how can you make a movie about three people stuck in a plane, like essentially just one room together, be entertaining for an hour and a half? The answer is just saying really stupid and weird things, because Mark Wahlberg just says the weirdest, craziest things he can say throughout the movie and repeats them incessantly, and then Topher Grace just says the dumbest things that he can come up with, like really unfunny jokes that he just keeps spouting out for some reason. So it's really not entertaining for any of the right reasons, but it can be entertaining because you might laugh your ass off. So, sure, it's a little bit of fun. Number 79, Wake Up Dead Man. This is a frustrating movie because this whole franchise is frustrating to me because anytime you've got a mystery, I want to like it. I love mysteries. I love cracking codes and puzzles and stuff. But this whole franchise is based off of making it the most predictable mystery you can think of. And a big part of that is always making the bad guy a white man, typically a Republican, or at least a Republican-like stereotype. Mix it up, Ryan. Make it a little bit harder to solve the puzzle a little bit, you know? And then, yeah, on top of that, I mean, at this point, I'm kind of used to Daniel Craig's awful accent, but it's still silly. You know, I have to bring it up if I'm reviewing it. And, yeah, this movie, I don't know, it's frustrating to me because it should be good. They've got, like, a lot of really good boxes checked. Like, oh, you've got a great cast. Awesome. Oh, the cinematography is good. Great. Check that. Oh, you've got a director that knows how to frame a shot and use the lighting to make something really cool. Awesome. Check all these boxes. What's missing? Oh, right. Any semblance of a mystery that is remotely interesting or good at all. Also, then you throw in some really bad comedy, and it's just, I don't know. I can't stand this kind of genre of movie that's so prevalent right now. It's just iPhone movie stuff. Like, and what I mean by that is, like, they literally make movies nowadays for certain audiences that are so easy to follow that they're designed specifically so that you can be on your phone scrolling Instagram and still follow what's happening. And that's what this feels like. Holy shit, you know, like, make a real movie for people that care about movies. If you can't follow the plot because you're on your phone, turn your fucking phone off, maybe. Number 78, The Housemaid. This movie is 2 hours long, a little bit over, and it has half an hour that's good. The rest of it is really stupid. It's also got some pretty darn bad acting from Amanda Seyfried for the first half. She ends up being, like, the best thing about the movie in the second half, which is bizarre. It's like such a 180. And then also, I am a Sydney Sweeney fan. You'll see her later on this list. This was not her best performance. She was flat. Her performance was. And I don't know. It felt silly and stupid. You know, the plot is nonsensical. I don't know. There's no weight to this movie. It just feels cookie cutter and it's boring. And it doesn't even feel like the people making it really wanted to be there. So if you didn't want to be there, why would I want to be there? The next few movies here on this list, 77 through 70, I'm just going to say they're all interchangeable. This is where we get around to the neither good nor bad. It's just completely forgettable. And so I may not even really review them, but it's Caught Stealing, Captain America Brave New World, Black Bag, The Alto Knights, The Amateur, The Unholy Trinity, Eden, and Avatar Fire and Ash. Ultimately, these movies are all almost entirely forgettable. And if I haven't seen them recently, I don't know what I could tell you really about them. I mean, Avatar Fire and Ash, it's the top of this forgettable category because I did like Una Chaplin. She was the one thing I liked about it. In Eden, it had some occasional good acting by people. It's got a great cast, so you'd expect it to be better, but oh well. Unholy Trinity, you've got Samuel L. Jackson, and he's phoning it in most of the time, but even Samuel L. Jackson phoning it in is entertaining occasionally. The Amateur, The Alto Knights, Black Bag, Captain America, Caught Stealing. The rest of these are completely forgettable to me. I genuinely don't have anything to say about them because they left that little of an impact on me that after I saw it, I went, I'm never going to think about that again. We're now going to enter into a category of movies that they're still not good, but they had good moments. Like, there's a couple moments in there that I was like, man, I really liked that. And then the rest of the movie's either bad or forgettable or something else. So, starting off this category is at 69, hey, Him, which, if you haven't seen that, that's, you know, the football horror movie. And it's got Marlon Wayans in it in a serious role, and he's decent in it. I think he's probably the best thing about the movie. But this concept, which was very interesting, they ultimately just did nothing with it. Like, it felt like this movie is an hour 36. It could have used another 40 minutes to flesh out some of these ideas, do something interesting, because they only ever touch on interesting ideas. They never actually expound on them or flesh them out at all. So, yeah, I wish this movie could have been like a Jordan Peele movie. It's clearly trying to be, but they don't get deep enough into any of the commentary, and the visuals are kind of just hinted at rather than actually embraced and shown. So ultimately, it was just very disappointing, which is frustrating, because like the concept and Marlon Wayans are both very enjoyable. Everything else, nothing. Number 68, Wolfman. This one is also entertaining because it's bad, but it's also at the same time sometimes good. It kind of flip-flops back and forth between being so bad it's good and then genuinely good. So it's like, I was kind of always entertained, but I kind of had whiplash, because there's some really good ideas in here. I love the framing of the Wolfman in certain scenes. In the very first scene with the Wolfman, they're up in like this like hunting nest thing. I don't know what they're called. I don't hunt. I'm sorry. And like they're up in this box, and you see the breath of the Wolfman behind them because it's cold, and so you can see the breath come up, and it's like, oh, he's right behind him, and nothing. They did nothing with that. You've also got these really interesting concepts about what the Wolfman sees as opposed to what normal people see and hears. Didn't really do anything cool with that either, though. So it was like a lot of interesting ideas and half-assed moments that are frustrating, because like, that was almost good. Why didn't we do anything more with it? And then you cut in between that with just really funny horror moments that are just so unscary they become funny. And then you've got really bad acting from some people, especially this kid delivering some of the worst written lines I've ever heard. So yeah, it's not remarkable, but it's also kind of a good time. But it would probably be enhanced by some adult beverages, maybe. Number 67, The Running Man. Edgar Wright just... what happened, man? When you hear about directors finally making projects that they've been wanting to make like their whole life, you get excited because you're like, man, they're finally making that thing. Like, you know, Nolan wanted to make Inception for years and years and finally got to make it. You're like, wow, look at how great that is. And, you know, James Cameron wanted to make Avatar since the 70s. And you can say what you want about the plot being useless, but like the visuals were awesome and people were entertained by that movie. This movie, you know, Edgar Wright supposedly wanted to make it his whole life, but like, why? You know, because he completely butchered the story, and everything about it is honestly bad. You know, like, sure, there's some interesting moments here or there. The action scenes are well filmed. There's some good acting by Glenn Powell, and Michael Cera has a great little bit. But, like, the humor doesn't work most of the time. The plot doesn't make sense. And they absolutely butchered the ending of this movie, where if you read the book and hear how that ends, you'll be scratching your head at, why in the world would anybody change that? Why would anybody go with what they did in this movie? It makes everything genuinely worse. Which is crazy because it's a Stephen King book, and normally he's the reason the endings are terrible. But no, not in this case. They made the ending worse. The more I talk about this movie, the more I'm wondering, should it be lower on this list? But ultimately, Edgar Wright is a great director, and the cast is good. So I give it credit for both of those. But yeah, it's about as bad as a great director can go. Well, unless you're like Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola, because he can go, when you go low, he goes lower. But like the normal great directors who don't make both the best and worst movie you've ever seen. Number 66, Drop. This is another one where it's like, this is just nonsense. It's silly, it's stupid, but hey, it's kind of fun because it's silly and stupid. So grab a couple of beers, grab a couple of friends, and enjoy yourself. There's no substance, there's no logic or thought being used at all. So just enjoy the stupidity and enjoy yourself, because that's what this movie is intending to do. It's not intending to be this smart, sleek thriller. It is what it is. It's stupid, and it knows it. So I can't really demerit it for that. You have to enjoy. Like I was saying, you know, earlier about the other movie where it's like, it's so bad it's good, but it's on purpose. This is a different kind of brand of that, where it's so bad it's good on purpose, but like it's still technically fine, you know? It's like a Fast and Furious in a way, but there's like a whole subgenre of horror thrillers that are intentionally bad, I swear they are, but they make money because you laugh and you have a good time watching them. That's what this is, and it does it fine. Number 65, Final Destination Bloodlines. And this is from the exact same genre, where it's stupid, but hey, it's entertaining. Why I put this ahead of Drop, though, was there was actually some deaths in there that were fun. I liked some of the visuals, and I liked some of the characters. Drop, I couldn't tell you anybody... I couldn't describe any of the characters' personalities to you. I could not. I don't even remember who the villain is. I don't remember what he looked like. Final Destination, I remember certain characters because there was certain things that were memorable about this movie. I remember some of the deaths. A lot of them were pretty stupid, but they were entertaining. So this movie, yes, it's stupid, it's dumb, it's not actually good, but it is entertaining, so I give it props for that. I had a fun time watching it. Will I ever watch it again? Probably not, but I was entertained once, so that's worth something. Number 64, Black Phone 2. This is another movie that's really dumb. And I don't think that they're trying to be dumb. Like, I don't think this is a Drop. I don't think this is a Final Destination. I think they were genuinely trying to make a good horror movie, and they failed in a lot of ways. But I will say there are some great visuals in this movie. Most of them in the first half, unfortunately, but there are some great visuals. And like, unless you like seeing the guy in the mask ice skating, that's a great visual too. But yeah, you've got a good, genuinely good cast. You've got some genuinely creepy moments early on in this movie, and then, yeah, it kind of falls apart in the second half, but you'll be entertained by the first half at least. Number 63, The Smashing Machine. There were two Safdie films this year, by two different Safdie brothers, but I'll be darned, they made the same movie in a lot of ways, and they only seem to know how to make one movie between the two of them. But hey, we got two of them this year. The first one on this list being The Smashing Machine, because it wasn't nearly as entertaining to me, because Dwayne Johnson, man, he looked the part, but like, I just didn't buy him as an actor. Emily Blunt was really good, but like, the plot is just contrived. Like, I know it's based on a true story, but the way they chose to present things was really flawed. I hated the camera work. This is one of those things where it's weird when like a good, quote-unquote, good filmmaker just has really bad technical aspects of the film, and the camera work was nauseating. I hated it. But like, there's also just pacing things, storytelling things where like, I know it's a true story, but I feel like you focused on the wrong things. Like Mark Kerr, you know, Dwayne Johnson's character, goes into rehab at a certain point, and like, that should have, like, to me, it felt like it should have been a big moment, and it's glossed over. There's some really good acting at times. The directing is good at times. It's a fairly well-made movie in a lot of areas. I couldn't really buy in all the way. Number 62, Sacramento. So, Michael Angarano made his directing debut here. He also acted in this movie alongside Michael Cera and Kristen Stewart, and it's just the most awkward collection of actors ever. The only way you could have made this more awkward was to throw in Jesse Eisenberg. You know, like, they are the most awkward people that act. And they put them all in one movie together. And this movie is very quirky. It's the definition of quirky. And it'll work sometimes, and it doesn't work other times. You know, it's a very cringy, intentionally so, movie. And sometimes you're cringing with it, and sometimes you're cringing at it. I know that doesn't really make as much sense as laughing with versus laughing at, but just pretend it did. Because sometimes this movie works in its off-kilterness, and other times I just feel like I'm watching a student film. Like I said, Michael Angarano directed this, and it's his first film as a director, and that shows in a lot of ways. This movie felt very rookie-ish, and that's a shame because I think with some rewrites and maybe some reshoots or a better director being involved, this could have been a really compelling story. It felt a lot like Jesse Eisenberg's movie last year with Kieran Culkin, but it just was a not as good version of that. So it's like, it's kind of a shame because not only did it come out after, but it wasn't as good. So you kind of missed twice there. But there's still some really compelling moments. The characters are fun to interact with, you know, seeing them interact with each other. There's some comedy moments that generally work great, but it's just not consistent enough for it to really work for me. Number 61, Frankenstein. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna get shit for this. I love Guillermo del Toro. I think he's a really fun filmmaker. And I thought Jacob Elordi really won me over in this movie. I thought he was great. And not that I was ever against him. I just didn't have much of an opinion of him. But him playing the creature in this, I thought he was great. I thought he was the best thing about it. Mia Goth also was very good. Her playing two roles, she handled that really well. I didn't even notice that she was two people. I knew she was because I had read it, and then I watched the movie and I didn't even notice. But yeah, this movie is just so bad from a writing perspective that it ruins everything great about it, because the acting for the most part is good, the directing is great, the cinematography, it looks mostly good. They did some, Netflix editing with the color grading and stuff, but the set designs are awesome, some of the special effects are really cool looking, and then it's just a nonsense version of a plot that we all know and love, where you butchered a really good story to dumb it down for a modern audience. Once again, that Netflix iPhone kind of movie. And you missed the point, the original messaging of this movie, to make a more simplistic, not as interesting point. So, once again, kind of feels like a betrayal, like the Superman thing from earlier. But it's just so well made that, I was still entertained. I was just frustrated the whole time, because I'm like, this movie was okay. We're in the okay territory here now. And this movie was okay. But it should have been great. And that's really frustrating. Especially the way people were talking about it. Made it sound like it was going to be great. And then it was only okay because the script was really was a miss. And that's the only thing bad about the movie. But that's unfortunately a pretty significant part of a movie. Number 60. Lurker. This is a lower budget movie. It's on Mubi. I bet a lot of people haven't even heard of it, but it was on my list and I caught up with it last week, and I was partially impressed with this movie. I was partially frustrated with this movie. Like I said, we're right in that section here. And this movie had a lot of potential, where we're showing kind of the desperation of people who want to be famous, want to be accepted, want to be loved, not just by people they know and care about, but by everybody, and will go to any lengths to get there. We've seen a lot of these movies, like Whiplash or whatever. Some of them are really good, some of them are forgettable. This one, unfortunately, is leaning more toward the forgettable side, but it had a couple of moments that I will remember and like. I'll just kind of wish that those moments were in a more compelling movie, because this movie felt non-committal. It felt like it kind of wanted to be a thriller, but it also wanted to be a drama, and it should have just picked one direction and ran in that. And instead, we got just something stuck in the middle, where it's it's kind of thriller-ish at times, but it's also mostly just people and their emotions. So, if it's supposed to be a thriller, I was not really thrilled. And as far as the drama goes, the characters are too weird to be compelling, because their character is written for a thriller. So, kind of caught in the middle. Some really good moments in there, but ultimately just some good moments, not a good movie. Number 59, The Carpenter's Son. Now, The Carpenter's Son, if you haven't heard of this movie, is maybe what it sounds like, a movie about Jesus. Kind of. This is a horror movie from the perspective of Joseph, aka Jesus's earthly father. And man, for the first half, great. One of my favorite movies of the year for the first half. And then Nicolas Cage, who yes is in this movie, decides he wants to have a patented meltdown, Nicolas Cage meltdown, which is just hilarious. Then you introduce some awful snake CGI monster thing, and just some really nonsensical plot devices, and the writing falls apart, and it's just lame from about the midway point on, which is a shame, because I really, really, really enjoyed the first part. I thought there was some really creepy imagery, some really great acting performances by not all of the actors, Nicolas Cage, FKA Twigs, but some of the acting. Noah Jupe was great, and I really liked, I don't even know the actor's name, Isla Johnston. She was really compelling in her role as well. There were some really likable things about this movie, especially the imagery. The imagery was fantastic, but yeah, it fell apart in the second half, which is a shame, because once again, should have been good, was only okay. Number 58, A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. Now, this movie is frustrating once again. We're in a frustrating category, where you just talk about the plot. If you don't know what this is, it's very clearly inspired by movies like The Adjustment Bureau and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And that's like my thing, dude. Like, this should have been my favorite movie of the year. But the writing is so painful at times that it ruins a lot of it for me. Because the characters are written seemingly by a 12-year-old boy who doesn't understand women, is kind of resentful of them, it seems, and thinks that a mopey boy is, a good enough main character. Also, the humor, awful. Really, really bad humor. And product placement is frustrating too. Legitimately, I thought the first trailer I saw for this movie, I legitimately thought it was a commercial for Burger King. And I was like, how the hell did they get Colin Farrell and Margot Robbie in a Burger King commercial? Anyway, there's some really endearing moments, I think, in this movie. And the acting is really good at times too. I love the visuals, the concept. Like I said, that's right up my alley. It should be awesome. And it's only ever pretty good. And, the rest of the time it falls flat. And it's reminiscent of a lot of things I like, but it's never as good as those things that I like. So, yeah, it's a little frustrating. I think I probably like it more than the average critic. It's got a 43% on Metacritic. I definitely like it more than that. But yeah, I definitely understand why. It's frustrating because this movie had every possible puzzle piece to make something that I would love and made something that I'm okay with. Number 57, Bring Her Back. It's one of those movies that I didn't love, but I can't really give you a reason why. Because I thought the acting was good. I thought the imagery was great. I thought the directing, the writing, all of it was compelling. And I just kind of, I don't know. I just never really fully bought in. I don't think I was ever, the movie, I didn't find it scary. Maybe that's why. And that's totally a subjective thing. But, it's my list, so I wasn't scared by it. Now, I can't, like I said, I can't point to any reason why this movie's not good, except for maybe it copies some other stuff, but who doesn't? It just, I don't know, it just wasn't for me, but it was fine in every way. In fact, like, I can look at it objectively and say, hey, that was a well-made movie. But I don't know, it never really clicked for me. It never really got my heart racing at any point. And honestly, I mostly forget it. Like, I remember the little kid banging his head on things and biting knives and stuff. Like, it definitely made me uncomfortable. The eating the knife was uncomfortable. But, Talk to Me was the first movie by the Philippo brothers. And that movie had me terrified, like, to do my review out in the parking lot. Like, I was looking over my shoulder and stuff. This movie did not. I felt nothing after the movie was over, and that's disappointing because I'm looking at it going, man, this looks good. It feels good. Why don't I care? I feel like I still have to give it a good rating, give it a thumbs up because they made a very well made movie, but I don't know, it didn't hit home for me. Number 56, Die My Love. Now, if the point of a movie is to make you feel things, then this movie succeeded. This movie made me feel a lot of things. It was elation at times, it was frustration, it was confusion, it was annoyance, it was all over every emotion, I think. Disgust, horror, everything. Because this movie, man, it's bizarre. And I love bizarre things, but this movie kind of lost me a couple of times because I just didn't fully understand it, and maybe that's criticism against my brain power, not the movie itself, but I don't know. I will say the acting is awesome. Jennifer Lawrence, I love her. I think she's great. Robert Pattinson, he was definitely used less in this movie, but he was good in his limited time. And then Lakeith Stanfield, I love him, barely used at all, but I wanted to say it, I love Lakeith Stanfield. So this movie feels very distracted. It's an adaptation of a book that I swear I haven't read it, but I bet that it makes a lot more sense in the book. It just feels like one of those things where they tried to do everything and couldn't commit to it, so they ended up just doing a lot of things, but not fully committing to any of it, and so it just kind of left you, as a viewer, confused if you haven't read the book. So this movie made me more confused than anything, but it certainly left an impact on me. And earlier, when I was making this list, this was down like in the 80s. But the more that I thought about it, I kept inching it up. And I couldn't make it like real high or anything because, yeah, it's definitely a flawed movie, but it left an impression. Like, especially Jennifer Lawrence just really has a raw, visceral performance in this movie that I can't get out of my head. I loved her in this movie. And so if I really genuinely loved and am passionate enough about her in this movie to not be able to get it out of my head and keep thinking about it, then I was like, I have to at least bump it up a little bit, because sure, the overall movie, kind of forgettable, but she certainly was not. Number 55, Roofman. Roofman is another one that it never really felt like it decided what it wanted to be. It was both comedy and drama, but not like a standard dramedy. It's like it was zany comedy at times, and then super serious, kind of sad drama at other times. And that's partially the mismarketing of this movie, leaving viewers frustrated, I think. But also, honestly, I just like, if you were going to tell this true story, I wish that we could have, taken the subject matter more seriously. I would have loved to have seen, the story be told in a serious way where you can, resonate with the characters and, feel sorry for him and be like, man, yeah, he went through a lot of hardships and I totally relate and get that. Instead, you're turning moments into any opportunity you can for kind of a laugh. And I felt like that was a poor choice. It reminds me of I Love You, Philip Morris, which does the same thing. That movie I like a little bit more. But yeah, it's like, just because you have Jim Carrey, or in this case Channing Tatum, doesn't mean the movie has to be funny. You can let the seriousness carry through, and these actors can do those serious moments. Let them do the serious moments. So yeah, I mean, this movie, it was frustrating. It had some really good moments. I thought it was very funny when it wanted to be. And I do really find the true story, very interesting. I just thought, the filmmakers didn't know how to tell that true story, unfortunately. Number 54, Thunderbolts. This movie was a lot of fun. The only issue with this movie can be explained by saying it's an MCU movie, because this movie really tries its darndest not to be one. But it is, it is, and it can't escape that, because it tries to be more self-serious, but there's still the patented MCU humor that drags things down, ruins key moments, and then it tries to be really dark. It's the best scene in the movie where this little girl just dust shadow, and it's like, holy shit, and then you go, this is an MCU movie. She's coming back. She's fine. And maybe that's not this movie's fault, but, she does come back, and it's predictable that she comes back. And so it's like, it tries to feel serious, and it tries to feel more adult than MCU typically is, but it can't commit to the bit because it still has to follow the formula. It pushes the limits of this cookie cutter, but it is still in the cookie cutter. And it can't escape from that because Disney and Marvel are too afraid to do any genuine risks. So it hints at taking risks, but doesn't fully commit. I mean, it doesn't even take as many risks as Doctor Strange by Sam Raimi did. That movie took more risks than this did. But yeah, it's still about as good as this era of the MCU can get. And there are some good moments. There's a great way of dealing with the villain in this, where it's psychological. It's not just punching a guy in the face. I enjoyed that. It's not as deep as I would like it to be, but like I said, it's about as deep as the mold lets it be. It's still the MCU. It can't be an art house film as much as they add in art house people into this. They're like, we've got the director from this, we've got, the cinematographer from that. Okay, yeah, but it's still an MCU movie. So it makes it as artistic as an MCU movie can be, but it is ultimately still limited by it being an MCU movie. That being said, I enjoyed it. Is it a great movie? No, but I enjoyed it. Number 53, Christie. Welcome back, Sydney Sweeney. It's her third time on this list. And I'll be honest, as much as I am a fan of her, this was a total miscast. That being said, I still enjoyed this movie in parts because it's such a compelling story. This is the opposite of Song Sung Blue, where Song Sung Blue is technically well made enough about a story I just don't give a shit about. It's got good actors, the camera work and directing are pretty generic, but it's all fine. It's got a big enough of budget that they can make the movie look decent, and then I just don't care about anything that happened. This movie, the budget is very low, it feels cheap, the casting is just, it's miscast, I'll be honest. Like I said, I like Sydney Sweeney can't buy her for 1 second as a boxer. I just can't. But when this movie gets good, and how it is good, is because the story shines through. So this movie isn't really a boxing movie. There's more at stake than that. So this movie, when it actually gets good, is when the boxing stops. Because it starts getting into Christy Martin's real story, about the abuse she endured, and the ultimate murder attempt that she survived through. And that was awesome to see. And that's when Sydney Sweeney actually worked in this movie, because her acting didn't have to be reliant on her looking like she knew how to jump rope, which she clearly has never done before. Or, having a face that can take a punch. Like, it just didn't buy that. But, like, when it got good was in those moments that felt real. So, no, this is another movie that isn't perfect. It's kind of half and half, but it's reversed. And I would rather a movie that starts bad and ends good than a movie that starts good and ends bad. Because at least when I walk out of the theater, I've got a good taste in my mouth. And I'm like, that had some compelling moments. And it ramped up and it got better as it went. That's how I felt after this movie. Does that really genuinely make it better than a movie that started good and then ended bad? Not necessarily. I mean, it's a case-by-case scenario, but in this case, I was able to enjoy this movie because I didn't know the true story. I think maybe I'd heard pieces of it before, but this was my first time seeing it played out, and it made me genuinely interested, and it stuck with me, It's the same sort of thing that I was saying about Die My Love, where it's like, is it a perfect movie? No, but it left an impact, and that's what art is supposed to do. Number 52. The Legend of Ochi. This is the closest I think we're ever going to get to an 80s kids movie. Like, this felt in so many ways like parts from, well, ultimately a Wes Anderson film, sure, but then it felt like there was parts of like the Neverending Story in there. It kind of reminded me of like the Goonies in a way. Like, it just felt like how they used to make movies for kids back in the day. I think ultimately the problem of this movie, well, I guess there's two, is one, it feels like it overstays its welcome a little bit. Like, I feel like I kind of was done with the movie before the movie ended. And two, it felt like there was so much going on that I swore that this movie was an adaptation of a book. And it's not. But it felt like it was alluding to a lot of stuff that, like, oh, if you read the book, you would get this. But there was no book. So I'm just like, so is that just poor writing? I don't know. Part of me likes that because it's like, oh, it makes the world feel bigger, But at the same time, I don't know. It didn't feel like a Harry Potter. It kind of felt like a Spiderwick, where I'm like, well, I like the idea, but not always the execution. That being said, there's a lot to love about the execution. The cast is great. I love Willem Dafoe. He's always great. There's a lot of child actors in this, and they're all pretty good. And then the puppets, man. I love practical effects. Any and every time you can use practical effects, please do. It's the best way to go. And they've got these puppets throughout, and they're just so much fun to look at. I love them. It once again is kind of like that 1980s kids movie where the fantasy is kind of bizarre and a little bit dark in some ways and a little bit weird and uncomfortable in other ways. But like, that's kind of why I liked it. It felt different. It felt, reminiscent of a lot of stuff, but not recent stuff. It felt like something from 20. Yeah, the 80s was 20 years ago. Jesus Christ. 40 years ago. That's awesome. That's awesome. Number 51. Good Fortune. This movie, I will say, is kind of derivative. It feels like it's taking from a lot of other things. It's kind of like It's a Wonderful Life. It's kind of like it's a body swap Freaky Friday kind of thing. And, I feel like there's a lot of miscasting in this. I feel like Aziz Ansari and Seth Rogen should have switched roles. It's Aziz Ansari's first film as a director, I think, as well. And it feels a little bit rookie as well. And then also Keanu Reeves. He can't act. So there's that. And I enjoyed this movie. I did. It's not a good movie, but I enjoyed it a lot, actually, because it's just earnest in a lot of ways. It feels genuine, it feels real, it feels fun, and they're not trying to do anything super highbrow. They're just trying to, teach a lesson and tell some jokes. And they do both. Is the lesson heavy-handed? Yes. Does it make you roll your eyes a little bit? Absolutely. Does all of the humor land? Not always. But you love to see it. It's just fun. It's a feel-good movie. It is the most feel-good movie of the year to me. Like, it's just everything about it. It's just like, that's fun. I had a good time. Did I have to turn off my brain a little bit? Absolutely. but I had a good time doing that. And yes, part of that includes Keanu Reeves, because can he act? No. Is he fun to watch? Yes, absolutely. I love watching Keanu Reeves. Number 50, Bambi: The Reckoning. I promised it, and here it is. The other intentional, so bad it's good movie. And this is another one I didn't quite know where to put it. You know, I put the other one all the way at the bottom. I put this one right around the middle because I genuinely enjoyed it from top to bottom. This movie was so fun. And not just because it was bad, it was also just good. Because this movie, the reason it's bad is because it's a horror movie about Bambi. Everything else is pretty good. You know, sure, it's generic in a lot of ways, but it's also super fun. I said in my review of it back when I saw it that this was a better Jurassic Park movie than the new Jurassic World was. Because some of the death scenes, some of the way these monsters come out of the woods and eat you, felt like it should have been in a much better movie. I loved some of the stuff they did, especially the scene with Thumper and his family. Loved that. You know, is it silly? Sure. Is it stupid? Absolutely. It's supposed to be. They made a really amazing, stupid movie. I hope they make a lot more. Number 49, Death of a Unicorn. I certainly expected more violence and gore and creative deaths, but it's still a really fun movie that is semi-horror, semi-family comedy movie with a really fun cast. I mean, it's got Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega, Will Poulter. I really enjoyed this cast. I enjoyed seeing them in these hilarious moments of peril. Maybe overstayed its welcome a little bit, but it kept me entertained for the vast majority of it. I was probably just like 15 minutes to go, and I was like, all right, let's wrap this up. But you often see that in horror movies and comedies where once the main point of the movie's over and you have to just wrap up that plot, that annoying plot thing, it can get a little bit boring. They still did a really good job with it, I thought. Number 48, Nuremberg. I surprised myself with how high I put this movie on the list because I had a lot of complaints. I still do have a lot of complaints about this movie. It's a 2.5-hour movie, and I thought the last hour of this movie should not have been in there, and I thought it was bad. I thought it kind of really devolved into... It's a true story, but it really devolves into a really cheesy, fake telling of a true story around that point. But there was something really compelling to me about the philosophy of this movie and the delivery vessel of that philosophy of the first hour and a half of this movie. I thought Russell Crowe was great. I enjoyed the rest of the cast as well. And despite its extremely low budget and it feeling and looking generic, I was still interested for most of that first hour and a half. After that point, it kind of falls off. And even in that first section, there's some issues I have with it. I mentioned them using real footage from concentration camps. I didn't think was necessary, but that's a creative choice that they made and they stuck with it. Also, there's some cheesy moments where at one point some guy says something that is clearly wrong, and then there's a loud buzzing sound right after he says it. That's practical because they're in a jail and that was a jail alarm, but it's just like, clearly that was there to be like, I think this. And it's just like, okay, that's cheesy. This movie's cheesy at times, but ultimately the reason that I put this movie up as high as I did on this list was the same reason I put Die My Love as high as I did. There was just a really compelling performance by one actor. The rest of the cast is good too, but like Russell Crowe really just blew me away in this role, and it had me thinking about it the days after I watched it. It didn't leave my brain because it really asks some fun, interesting questions about what makes people evil and how do you respond to evil? Can you fix it or do you have to eradicate it? It's a very compelling story. It's a very compelling question. Like I said, the movie unfortunately forgets when to stop and keeps going, but still, I mean, that first hour and a half, really compelling. And so overall, it's a pretty good movie. Number 47, a Minecraft movie. Yes, because guess what? It was funny. I laughed a lot at this movie. Is it a good movie? Absolutely not. Is it trying to be? No. The point of this movie was for Jack Black to live out his Minecraft fantasy and Jared Hess to make as many references to Napoleon Dynamite as he could. And they succeeded at those things. And yeah, okay, it's dumb. Some of the acting is really bad. The plot is nonsense, but it is always entertaining, it's always funny, and it's just a really feel-good movie too. Sometimes you don't need to make the movie good, you just need to succeed at what you're trying to do. Did you make me laugh? Yes. Did you make me feel warm and fuzzy inside? Yes. Did I have a fun time seeing Jack Black and Jason Momoa do their stupid shtick together? Absolutely. So this movie worked for me. Is it gonna win an Oscar? Why would you ask such a dumb question? Of course not. No. But it's not supposed to. It's supposed to make you laugh. It's supposed to make you smile. And I did both the entire movie. Number 46, F1, the movie. This movie has obviously been compared countless times to Top Gun Maverick, and yeah, for obvious reasons, because it's the same basic plot, just with cars, and it's the same director, and very similarly, it succeeds in putting you in the seat, in the driver's seat, and making you feel a rush. I didn't watch this at home yet. I've only seen it in the theater, but like I felt it watching it in the theater, and it was very compelling for that. Throw in some great actors like Brad Pitt and Javier Bardem, and you've got a very dad-pleasing movie. I'm not a dad. If I was, maybe I would have liked it more, put it higher on the list. I've seen people all around putting this in their top 10s. It's not that good of a movie to me, but it's a fun movie. It succeeds at what it's trying to do, a lot like Minecraft, where, you know, maybe this movie has aspirations for Oscars, like cinematography or score or editing, something like that. And maybe it will, best sound, you know, this like that kind of movie. But like what this movie ultimately is for a dad on a lazy Sunday afternoon to watch and go like, yeah, that's cool. And it succeeds at that. Do I remember anything really about this plot? No. I just remember Brad Pitt drove some cars, and I was entertained watching that. It's not a really compelling story. It's not really original in any way. I just said it's basically Top Gun again, but it succeeds at being that mold. It's the same sort of thing where I was saying like about the MCU movies. It has a purpose, and it has a very strict mold, and it fits in that mold to a T. It limits it from being a great movie, but it was pretty much as good as this kind of movie could be. I definitely think Top Gun Maverick is held in higher esteem, but hey, this one was fun too. Number 45, The Fantastic Four, First Steps. Now I know, I said Thunderbolts is about as good as modern MCU can be, and now this one is several spots higher. Why is that? Well, this one is also about as good as a current MCU movie could be. And it also made me feel a little bit optimistic for where the MCU could be going, because I thought this movie, aside from a couple of major flaws, was great, you know, and I'm not a big fan of the MCU, but like, I thought the casting was great, especially Human Torch and The Thing in this were by far my favorite thing about the movie, just their banter back and forth. It felt so real, which is like making an MCU movie comedy, like banter, sound like real dialogue is unheard of. It always sounds stupid and contrived and scripted. It kind of felt like a real family interacting. Now, the plot is silly and stupid. I get that. Also, it's a sequel to a movie that never existed, and that annoys me. But aside from those two things, I was entertained. I thought the action looked good. The special effects looked good. I thought, especially The Thing, he looked awesome. I know it was a mixture of CGI, mostly CGI, but they did have like that practical suit for some things. I'm not sure what, but it was mostly CGI, and it looked good. I thought the Silver Surfer looked awesome, and they genuinely made me care about these characters, which I can't say I've ever cared about the Fantastic Four before. Like, I did have some toys, you know, growing up of the Fantastic Four, but I was a fan of those movies because of Jessica Alba, I'll be honest. I was. Sure, I thought Michael Chiklis as The Thing was awesome. He's still my favorite version of The Thing. Not complaining about those toys, Mom. I appreciated them. I liked them. But those movies were a vehicle for me to watch Jessica Alba with blonde hair. This movie was the best Fantastic Four movie, I think, so far. And not that that's saying a whole lot, but it's an improvement from where they were. It felt like there was a point with what they were trying to do, and it finally felt like they were taking those first steps in the right direction. So, is it really that much better than Thunderbolts? Maybe, maybe not. But it made me feel optimistic for the first time in a long time about what the MCU was doing, whereas Thunderbolts, it kind of felt like more of the same, just a good version of it. This generally felt like a new direction, and so because of that, I'm putting it higher on the list. Number 44, The Monkey! So, the first of Osgood Perkins' movies from 2025, and completely not what I expected at all. I mean, I saw the trailers, so I kind of knew what to expect at that point, but following up Longlegs, I was expecting something really serious and artsy, and he said, haha, no, I'm going to make the dumbest movie you've ever seen, and it's going to be the best dumb movie you've ever seen, because it's going to be so much fun, and people are just going to explode at every possible instance. Even impossible instances, mostly impossible instances. I thought this movie really succeeded at what it set out to be, which was stupid, fun horror. And like I said earlier, that is a whole subgenre of horror movies that are not trying to be good, they're trying to be entertaining. And I thought this did it better than most. And then randomly, this movie also had just a really interesting artsy moment at the end. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I really enjoyed that, but I don't understand it. But it compels me. So this movie, not at all what I wanted or expected initially from this movie, but I ended up really, really enjoying it for what it actually was. Number 43, Dogman. Oh, man, yeah. This movie, it was so much fun. If you're a fan, if you grew up reading Captain Underpants, I actually still have not seen the Captain Underpants movie. I need to get on that. But I didn't grow up reading Dogman. I'm sure that would have made this even better. But, like, you just see the same humor there that was in Captain Underpants and all of those great childhood memories growing up reading that. You see that, same blueprint, those fingerprints all over this movie as well. And it was such a nostalgia trip for, even though something that I technically never read, this movie still was just like, I don't know, it felt like being a kid again. And I really enjoyed it because it's not about the plot, I'll tell you that. But it's about just having a good time. It's about laughing at really silly things. The humor doesn't have to be clever. It is at times, but it's just silly and fun. It's for kids, and it can be really ridiculous at times, but that's what makes it so good. And yeah, I couldn't get enough of this. I hope they make 10 more of them. I'll be back sitting in a theater, front row, well, probably row C, if I'm being honest. I'll be back every time watching these on opening night because it was just such... It felt like, they just took the book, shook it out onto a script, and then said, here you go. There it is. And that was just so refreshing because, like, adaptations, I feel like there's always something lost in translation. And there wasn't. This just felt like one for one. And golly, I had a great time. Number 42, Good Boy. It is rare that you come across a movie that is, like, actually genuinely original, And sure, the horror of this movie is fairly generic and forgettable, I'll be honest. Even the allegory, like, this kind of slips into allegorical horror too. All of that's kind of forgettable. I know I said this about some previous movies. It kind of felt like it was caught in between two things. But that's kind of fine because nobody's watching Dumb and Dumber for the plot. And nobody's watching Good Boy for the horror. They're watching it for the dog. Because if you haven't seen this is a horror movie from the perspective of a dog. And I was going to say the dog is a great actor. Turns out not really. They just filmed it over the course of years or something. Yeah, that sounds exhausting, but it led to some really great results. And like I said, sure, the horror isn't always great. The movie's fairly cheap, and the horror not particularly compelling, but what's great, and what's compelling, is both the faces and the noises that this dog makes, because you'll spend the entire movie just wanting to jump through the screen and give him a hug. I know he wasn't actually scared. I know he was having a good old time playing games with his owners on camera. That's great. I love that. But this movie really convinces you that this dog is in peril at times, and you'll want nothing more than to just give him a pat on the head and give him a hug and a kiss. And, I'll say it. I am genuinely more of a cat person than a dog person, but I wasn't thinking about any damn cat while watching this movie. I was solely locked in a very, very Good Boy. Number 41, Heart Eyes. And we're back to that fun old subgenre of so bad they're good horror movies where they're more of a parody of horror movies than they actually are horror movies themselves, but they can still bring some genuine jump scares or some visceral imagery that can be a lot of fun. This movie also, plot isn't super important, and in fact it gets super convoluted and dumb at the end of the movie, but up until that point it's really fun. You know, it's kind of a rom-com with a slasher, except for he's not really a slasher, he's more of a blunt force trauma and sometimes he like uses like the tire iron to stab through the woman's head or whatever. Anyway, there's some really fun imagery in there, and it's a really silly, fun, stupid horror comedy movie that I couldn't get enough of. And this is another one. If they make sequels to this, make it about other holidays, you know, it's like we got Valentine's Day down, cool. Now maybe he'll do something on St. Patrick's Day. I don't know, just keep it going, keep making more of these. I'd be locked in every year if they could do something like that. So, is it, you know, something to write home about or write to the Oscars about? No. But is it something that you can get some friends together, watch it late night with a couple of drinks, and have a great time? Absolutely. I really enjoyed this. I laughed my ass off. And then also, still, there was some horror imagery that was genuinely great. There's a shot I alluded to where he stabs the woman in the head, and the camera pulls back through the hole. That is one of the best horror shots I've seen in years. And it was in a horror comedy. So, just because it's a horror comedy doesn't mean they skimp out on the horror either. Skimp out a little bit on the plot at times, but other than that, it is a wholly entertaining movie. And yeah, I'd recommend it to anybody who is a fan of this genre. I think it's about as good as this genre can get. I will say there's one more on this list that fits into that category that I liked a little bit more, but this is about as good as I've seen it in a long time. Number 40. Sketch. Now, this also is a movie I'd put in that same category as The Legend of Ochi, where it feels like a callback to a different time in kid movies, where we weren't afraid to take a little bit of risks here or there, and it shocked the hell out of me because it's Angel Studios. If you know anything about them doing anything creative or unique or interesting at all, plot twist of the year. But this movie is like a horror movie for kids, and it's very entertaining because I think you'd have to be a fairly young kid to be genuinely scared by anything, but you'd be entertained by the plot, I think, certainly as a kid. And if you're an adult, this movie is hilarious. This movie is so funny. Just the way that the children interact with each other, with the parents, and the parents interacting with each other too. And it's just so imaginative. Because this movie, if you haven't heard of it, is about this kid's drawings who come to life and try to kill people. And there's some, you know, maybe heavy-handed commentary in there at times, but a lot of it is also just genuinely good. And there's, some, like I said, some exciting moments for the kids. There's one or two moments that I think would get a jump out of a kid. And also, like I said, it's just endearing with the comedy between the characters that, yeah, they're just a lot of fun. They're funny, they're goofy, they're likable, and also at some points fun to hate. So, yeah, a really big shock for me this year. It crept up on me. I hadn't heard anything about it until like a week before it came out. I went and saw it because I was like, I got nothing else to see. And I really enjoyed it. So, yeah, who knew? The niche in the market we've all been waiting to be filled. Horror movies for kids. Like I said, it feels like something from a bygone era in a lot of ways. Not as 80s feeling necessarily as something like Legend of Ochi, but still something that, like, if you've got kids and you miss when they made movies like that, then you should take your kids to see this, or I guess at this point, you know, rent it. Number 39, Tron Ares. Now this is going to be contentious for the opposite reason that, you know, Superman was, because I think most people didn't like this movie so much. It does have a 6.2 on IMDb. It's got a 48% from critics, so people were kind of down the middle with it, and I would say I kind of am too. But the reason I put it this high on the list was I fell for the nostalgia bait of this one too. I really, really bought into the member berries and the references. Because, you know, I grew up on Tron, the first one, absolutely loved it. When Tron Legacy came out, I felt like everybody but me liked it. I guess the rest of my family didn't either. It just felt cold and heartless, and it didn't really feel like Tron to me. It felt like Star Wars or something, and it just didn't feel like the right thing. It felt like it was embarrassed to be Tron. This movie is not embarrassed to be anything. It's silly, It's stupid, but guess what? Tron was an 80s movie that was silly and stupid, and this movie embraces that. It's got a little bit of MCU humor in there, which you roll your eyes at, but there's some roll your eyes at humor in the first one too, so that's fine. You know, I think there's nothing wrong with being cringy if the thing you're paying homage to or making a sequel of it was cringy. That's fine. And I think, you know, Tron Legacy tried too hard to not be like Tron that it missed the whole point. It's like, why make a Tron movie if you're embarrassed of the source material? This one wasn't embarrassed at all. And yeah, it's a little bit silly, it's a little bit cringy at times, but it's fun and it's different and it's unique, and at the same time takes moments to pay homage, like the scene that they go back. Oh man, I don't want to spoil that if you haven't seen it, but it was just, I was on cloud nine, you know, for scenes like that, because it made me feel like a kid again too. I said that about a couple other things. This movie made me feel like a kid again, and I'm not embarrassed to say it. I've really enjoyed this movie. Number 38, The Naked Gun. I said we'd come back around to Pamela Anderson. I liked her in this movie, but you know what else I liked in this movie? Pretty much everything, which shocked me because it had one of the worst trailers I've ever seen. I genuinely thought this movie was going to be dog shit, and it turned out to be one of the funniest movies I've seen in a few years, honestly. This movie had me constantly laughing, rolling my eyes, smacking my forehead, because I was like, oh, how did I not see that coming? This movie was phenomenal in its representation, and it's paying homage to what came before. I know I just talked about it in Tron, but like, you see it a lot where people try to reboot something and or remake something, and it just completely misses the mark. It's not, you know, it doesn't have the same kind of magic, or they're trying too hard to change it or modernize it. This movie, sure, there's some modernized versions of jokes, but they are not afraid to just kind of do the same thing again. Now, is that a little bit uncreative and repetitive? Sure, but that's kind of the Naked Gun way, is they're not afraid to tell the same kind of jokes over and over and over again and have you roll your eyes the same way, because they're grandpa jokes. You know, like, that's what your grandpa would do, is he would tell you a really dumb joke and you'd laugh anyway. That's kind of what this is. And the best are when you're like, I can't believe I didn't see that coming. And there's jokes like that throughout this movie that had me quoting them for weeks after I saw it. So yeah, I was amazed by this, because everything about the trailer made me go, here we go. Another terrible remake, another terrible reboot. And man, Liam Neeson fell off. And then I watched it and went, oh, that was funny. I wouldn't mind if they made another one of these. That is the plot twist of the year, honestly. Number 37, Clown in a Cornfield. Did I overrate this movie? 100% absolutely I did. But yes, it is, once again, from that genre, that subgenre of stupid horror movies that are more interested in being fun than scary or a good movie. And yeah, I thought they nailed the formula. It has a villain that is legitimately entertaining, a little bit intimidating in some ways. It's got a main cast of characters that you enjoy watching and are interested in whether they live or not. And you've got great humor, but also some scary or gory moments that will keep you guessing on, oh, what's coming next. That's awesome. You know, like, sure, it's really stupid. This movie's got a 55% and a 5.6. I don't care. This is a good time. Like, it's just prepackaged fun, and you can't go wrong with it. I mean, maybe if you read the book, I don't know. I didn't read the book. Maybe it's a bad adaptation. Maybe that's part of why the rating came down. I don't care. I had a really good time watching it, and I hope it gets the sequels that are hinted at. But even if it doesn't, I will watch this movie again, and I will enjoy it every time, because yeah, it's stupid, and that's what makes it fun. Number 36, Elio. Now, okay, I haven't really, I'll be honest, kept up with Pixar all that much in recent years. I liked Luca back when that came out, but you know, I feel like Pixar's kind of lost some of their magic. Like, it felt like they could do no wrong for the first 20 years, and then it kind of felt like they kind of blended together with Disney, and both of them were inextinguishable from each other and both kind of boring. And this was the first time I felt like invested watching a Pixar movie. I had a really good time with this. It's definitely not back to the heyday, the golden age of Pixar. This isn't Toy Story 2 or The Incredibles or any of those, but like, actually was good from start to finish. And I liked the characters, and I liked the animation, and I liked the plot. That feels crazy to say, like, it's an accomplishment for Pixar, but like, I honestly, I couldn't have cared less about Pixar for a while. And this brought me back in, and maybe I just have been unfairly judging Pixar movies based on the trailer or posters or whatever, because I haven't seen a lot of them, but this was good. So maybe Pixar never left, but regardless, I'm back, and I'm back to enjoying Pixar movies. Number 35, Keeper. Keeper definitely also wasn't entirely perfect. And so you may be wondering, why is it up this high? Because it's another movie that, despite its imperfections, it just really hung around for me. This is Osgood Perkins' other movie this year, by the way. And it was everything I wanted it to be and wanted the monkey to be after singing Long Legs, where it's like that artsy, slow burn kind of horror movie. And maybe, like I said this in the first thoughts of it, maybe he's not as artsy as I think he is based on how his movies look, because the plots aren't always super deep or complex or anything, but man, they look good. And that's my one complaint about this movie, is I wish there was a little bit more to get invested in from a plot standpoint. But dude, this movie looks awesome. It has some of my favorite horror imagery, I was going to say in a long time. I'm going to say ever. And maybe there's not enough of it, which I guess could be another complaint, but like, there's like a scene near the end of this movie when it really finally all starts coming at you, and it's one of my favorite horror scenes I've ever seen. Not that it's a super scary scene by this point in the movie, but it just looks and feels awesome. This movie really didn't get a whole lot of scares out of me, but it really was compelling to me because the imagery is unmatched. I can't remember the last time I saw a horror movie that looked this pretty or this unique and interesting. There's so much to enjoy about the cinematography, the directing style, the costume and effects that go into making these creatures and monsters or whatever else is in this movie look the way they do. It's so much fun. Even if it's not super scary or anything, I don't know that it is. To me, it wasn't. But it's just, it was, I've said this before, it's brain food, because I'm not scared, but I am intrigued, and so I just want to eat it all up. So yeah, that's why it's this high, even though I did have some complaints. I just can't remember the last time I saw a horror movie that was this pretty. Number 34, Anemone. Another movie that I gave a lot of crap in the review, and I'm not taking that back either. I thought this movie was bizarre, and I don't know how I feel about it entirely still. But, much like with Keeper, I can't get this movie out of my brain, and I feel like that stands for something. That's gotta mean something. And then, on top of that, you throw in some just absolutely fantastic acting between Sean Bean and Daniel Day-Lewis. They're both awesome. The imagery is really bizarre, unique, and intriguing. It may be copying other things before it, but it's still unique enough that, like, the imagery is just, it blew my mind, and it had me asking questions. And I don't feel like I still have some of the questions answered, but I just keep saying about some of these movies, you just can't get them out of your brain. And what is art supposed to do? It's supposed to evoke a reaction. It's supposed to make you feel something. And in some cases, it's supposed to make you think. And this movie has done that to me. It's made me feel a lot, and it's made me think a lot. Do I know what I think and what I feel? Not necessarily. Is some of that feeling discomfort? Sure. But I don't think art is always meant to be an enjoyable sensation. I think sometimes it's supposed to make you uncomfortable. And this movie did, and I enjoyed that it did that to me. So yes, I'm still going to hold up any criticism I said about it in the first thoughts, but I don't know. Something about this movie, it compels me. I already used that joke, but we're saying it again. Number 33, The Day the Earth Blew Up. I will say the same things I feel like that I said both about, Dogman and also about The Naked Gun, where it's like, it's very nostalgic feeling, and it feels like just such a perfect representation of the things that came before, while still kind of updating it for a new generation, because the humor in this movie is very bizarre at times, but it's also very Looney Tunes at times. It really nails a lot of really classic Looney Tunes style gags or bits, but then at the same time, anything to do with Farmer Jim is just so insane. But it's like, I don't know, they like, I guess maybe it's because they were at one point kids who grew up on Looney Tunes and that's how their humor developed. But it also happened to be me, a kid who grew up on Looney Tunes, how my humor developed. It's not Looney Tunes humor. It's not. But somehow fit perfectly and was absolutely hilarious. So maybe there are some Looney Tunes purists out there who are going to be like, the humor doesn't feel right. I don't know. I thought it was hilarious. It's another one where maybe the plot isn't great. The plot isn't really important. But when have you ever watched Looney Tunes for the plot? You watch it for Daffy Duck and Porky Pig and Bugs Bunny, but he's not in this one. And I loved every second of this stupid little thing. I just loved it so much, man. It takes you back to being a kid, but then it slaps you in the face with some humor you're really not expecting. It's the most fun I've had with a Looney Tunes movie in decades, like the first Space Jam. I can't remember the last time Looney Tunes was this good. Number 32, Springsteen, Deliver Me from Nowhere. This is another one that's going to be contentious, but I will climb up onto my soapbox here and say, no, I'm right about this, and people just don't know what good movies are, man, because the criticism for this movie is so stupid, because people say it's boring, or people say it's not compelling, or whatever. They'll be like, oh, it's just a movie about a guy moping around. Okay, that's his story. That's the story of Springsteen. What did you want? The same biopic every other single musical biopic is? They're all the same fucking bullshit. And this, for once, actually made a movie that felt like a movie. It was a biopic that felt like a real story. And I mean, sure, I'm sure they changed some stuff. I know they did. I did some research and saw that they combined characters and whatever. They always do that. But like, this is legitimately the only biopic about a musician that I've ever seen write a song and went, I believe that. I believe that is how he wrote that song. Because it showed a process. It showed a mental process of like, here, let me write like this. Now this is how the demo sounds. Now I'm going to change some of these words. I'm going to change this arrangement. I'm going to add in this. Oh, wait, no, I don't like that. I'm going to take that out. Here's the version that we're going to use. Oh, here's this song I wrote. I really like it, but no, we're not going to put it on this album. It doesn't fit. We'll put it on the next one. That's awesome. If you are actually a fan of this musician and you don't like this movie, I think you're an idiot. Like, everybody loves the Bohemian Rhapsodies of the world, or Elvis. That stupid, idiotic bullshit where it's just the same stupid tropes played out over and over and over again by overactors doing terrible impressions of these musicians. And sure, does Jeremy Allen White have a great Springsteen impression? Not always. I think his singing voice, he nails down pretty well. Talking and looks-wise, not so much. But, like, what would you prefer? A good actor or somebody doing a caricature? Like, I can't get over how dumb people are when it comes to biopics. Most of them, I would say a strong 99% of them that actually make money are terrible. And then this one that was actually pretty good, not great, but pretty good, people crapped on and said it was boring. I'm sorry, seeing a character, a person's story of them going through depression isn't compelling to you? What, do you just want to see them binge out on drugs for one scene and then go to rehab? Is that more interesting? No, this felt real and raw in a lot of ways. I don't know. I can't. I can't with people. Number 31, Hamnet. Now, this movie, it's weird because it's based on a true story, but not really. It's based on a true story in the same way that, like, Titanic is. Everybody knows it's not true, but it's based around real events and real characters. And so, as long as you approach it like it's fiction, not actually supposed to be true, then I think it's a lot more enjoyable because it's not remotely true. Like, nothing about this is. But what I can say about this movie is that the story is expertly made. I mean, Chloe Zhao is a great, great director. I love the way that the scenes just hold, like the camera is just holding in place on actors delivering dialogues back and forth for minutes at a time, unflinching. Like, there's just the editing is so brave in that they just let things happen, It's very slow burn. It's just allowing moments to breathe. No, none of them ever will run out of breath because they have plenty of time to catch it. And on top of that, you've got great actors. I mean, Paul Mescal, Jesse Buckley, they're both great. The cinematography is awesome. Yeah, I think this is going to be an awards favorite, an awards darling. We're going to be hearing about it a lot for the next couple months. Number 30, Zootopia 2. I was just talking about Pixar and kind of, like the whole Pixar Disney thing on how I hadn't really been bought into them recently, hadn't really been interested in anything they were doing recently. And then I wanted to see Zootopia 2, obviously because Zootopia 1 was great, but it had been a decade. Is the second one going to be able to hold up at all? Yes, it absolutely did. I think the first one's still better, but this one is still hilarious. The voice cast is great. The references are sick, bro. It's just really clever writing. I mean, sure, the plot, once again, it's a kid's movie. The plots don't really matter that much, but like, I really did enjoy the character side of the plot. Like, the end goal and all of that, like, oh, we need to get to this place and do that thing, didn't care. But, like, seeing the way that the characters would interact and they would evolve and, like, they would fight and then talk about it, I was really invested in those moments, in those plot points. So you mix that in with a really good comedy, and I had a great time with this movie. Number 29, Anaconda. Another one of the absolute shockers of the year for me. The same thing as Naked Gun. I thought this movie was going to suck. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was going to review it specifically to tear it apart. And I had a great time watching it. Once again, not necessarily because it's a great movie or anything, but it knows it's not a great movie and enjoys that. It's really funny, but even more than that, it's really endearing. I know for me personally, the characters in this movie were wannabe filmmakers, guys that as kids they made movies together and now they grew up and things didn't quite go their way. And, that's something that I think every artist, I mean, probably everybody can relate to in some way, but for me specifically, like, having made movies as a kid and now making them now, it's great, but, like, you get to see, like, an alternate reality of yourself in a way, and it was such an emotional movie for me, which is such a funny thing, because I would never have guessed that. But, between that and the Jack Black of it all, and Paul Rudd is hilarious too, this movie is just really funny, but it's also really endearing. And I had such a good time. And I'm not ashamed to say it, because this is another one where I'm sure, like critics gave it a 43%. I get why. I kind of agree. But I'm giving it a positive rating and I'm putting it in my top 30 because I really enjoyed it. I just did. And no, I don't look like Jack Black. Stop saying it, Mom. Number 28. Mickey 17. A lot of people, maybe it's just film Twitter, you have to have a really strong opinion one way or the other on something, especially when it's an original movie. If it's an original concept and you don't go out and support that movie, then you hate movies. And it's like, sometimes original ideas are just good or okay, or sometimes they're bad. And this movie, I think people really wanted it to be the best movie of the year, and it didn't end up being that. And so I think some people were really disappointed by that. But no, it ended up being good. It's still a very good movie. It just wasn't the best movie of the year, but that's fine. And it is still original idea. That's great. We need more original ideas in Hollywood. We can't just keep doing the remakes, although they're good for the Hollywood ecosystem. But, like, I don't know. I really did enjoy aspects of this movie still. I thought the cast was great. Naomi Ackie, she stole the show. I think she was probably my favorite thing about the movie. So, I mean, the imagery is a lot of fun. The plot, the philosophy that comes with the plot, it's fun. Political commentary is a little heavy-handed, I'll be honest, but it's still fun. And hey, we got original-looking aliens that don't look like humans. That's notable in of itself. Number 27, September 5th. Or September 5. I still don't know how to pronounce the title of this movie. Yeah, I was very vocal in my frustration after having watched this movie. And then I realized the same thing that made me bump up the ratings of some of these other movies. Evoking emotion, evoking a reaction is the point of art. Messages in movies don't always have to be spelled out. Sometimes you're just showing something and then letting the audience take it however they will. And this movie pissed me the hell off. In other words, it succeeded at getting an emotional reaction out of me, because this movie is about a lot of really shitty people doing some really shitty stuff. I don't think they deserve to have their story told. I think they're awful people that deserve to be forgotten to time. But ultimately, this story was told, and it got a reaction out of me that was very powerful. So this movie is powerful. It has the ability to show you something unflinchingly. It's not ashamed to tell you what happened, and it is a really hard watch at times because of that. It's a very infuriating watch at times because of that. But just, taking enjoyment level out of that and realizing that's good art then. It succeeded. It did what it wanted to do. It really did. It really pissed me off. And that's a good thing, because that's what it wanted to do, and damn, it worked. So I'm sorry for mean things I've said about this movie. It is a good movie. It's just a hard watch. Number 26, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul. And yes, we did it. We absolutely nailed a reboot of a franchise. I know I've said that a couple of times, like saying that about Naked Gun, saying that about Tron, but with this, it felt like we never left. And that is the best compliment you can give to a reboot, is like saying like, so we never left. It feels like we're just making sequels. And it kind of, in a way, it is. I think there's a lot of the same people involved, but it's been 20 years or whatever since we made a Wallace and Gromit movie, and we've got, a different cast. Wallace, the actor, has died, and we've moved on to another actor. And it feels like we didn't miss a beat. And that's awesome. Like, it's not the best Wallace and Gromit movie, Curse of the Were-Rabbit is going to be hard to beat. That movie is practically flawless. I love that movie. But, like, everything about this worked for me. It felt nostalgic, but it felt new. It was fresh, but it was familiar. And I said this in my review of it. It felt like seeing an old friend again. It felt like running up to your grandparent and giving them a hug. That's what this movie felt like to me. And it was great. I can't remember the last time a reboot felt this seamless. That's awesome. That's really unique, and that's really special. So now we are entering into the official top 25, which, of course, that means we're entering into some high praise territory here. It's still not top 10 yet, but we are getting into the top tier movies. And we've had a lot of good movies this year. I've been praising movies since the mid 40s here. Don't you ever tell me they don't make good movies anymore, because if you think that, you don't watch enough movies. So without further ado, here is the top 25 movies of 2025. Number 25, Marty Supreme. I honestly didn't expect to like this movie for a couple of reasons. One, I haven't been a fan of the Safdie brothers. I didn't see their movie with Robert Pattinson. Still, I had no reason to, because I didn't like Uncut Gems, and I didn't like The Smashing Machine. Also, I had gotten into my head that I didn't like Timothée Chalamet. And then I realized, watching this movie, that that's a lie. I had gotten into that mental headspace probably because I feel like he's been miscast a couple times, because I didn't like Wonka at all, and I am not a huge fan of the Dune movies. And so I think he didn't really fit those roles, and so I got into my head that he wasn't good. He's great. I've loved him, and I remember loving him since Beautiful Boy. I just forgot about those good performances because of the recent ones. A lot of people are saying this is the best movie of the year. I don't agree with that, but I did genuinely enjoy it. It reminded me a lot of a Martin Scorsese film at times. It also reminded me of Paul Thomas Anderson at times. Even a little bit of the Coen brothers. All great filmmakers. And I was kind of looking back at the filmography that I've seen of the Safdies so far and realizing I think that there has always been talent there. I just haven't liked the movies for various reasons. I didn't find anything interesting or compelling about it. And maybe that's because they were unlikable, or maybe I just didn't understand why anybody would care about these characters or what was happening to them. This one was the first time I did, because even though Timothée Chalamet, his character was so detestable in some ways, I also found him pretty relatable in some ways. So, yeah, I like this movie more than I thought I would. A lot more than I thought I would. Number 24, Americana. Welcome back, Sydney Sweeney. It's been a minute. This movie I really enjoyed, and it was another one that I didn't necessarily have high expectations for going into it, but I enjoyed it thoroughly, and it also kind of reminded me of like a Coen Brothers-esque style movie. There's so many different characters with parallel stories. They're not directly interacting for most of it, but you can kind of see how they'll weave in and out of each other's lives. And it's got some very witty dialogue, some fast-talking people, and then the cast is really good, and that's shocking probably to a lot of people, because when you read off the cast, Sydney Sweeney, Paul Walter Hauser, Halsey, they're not names that necessarily jump off the page as, names that you would see on an Oscar ballot, but I thought they all did a really good job. Sydney Sweeney, she's had a rough year as far as how people are reacting to her and boycotting her and bombing the ratings of some of her movies that didn't deserve it. Like, this movie has a 5.9 on IMDb, and that is way too low, in my opinion. And I think a lot of that is stupid stuff that has nothing to do with the movie and is just stupid. I thought overall this movie was really underappreciated and just overlooked. I don't think a lot of people even knew about it. And yeah, I thought this was absolutely one of the best movies of the year. Number 23, Begonia. Yorgo Lanthimos is such a weird guy, and I'm so happy about that. Also, speaking of weird guys, Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone. Y'all are both weird guys too. So this movie is just such a weird little movie that is such a trip. It is so much fun, and it was, I want to say, unique. Granted, it's a remake of a Korean film, I believe, and so it's not entirely unique, but that plot was. And it's unlike anything I think I've ever seen before. I've heard people say that this was like an extremely nihilistic movie, and I guess I get that. It certainly has some nihilism commentary in there, but I loved it, and I didn't, maybe I'm a nihilist. I just really like that commentary. But the movie in classic Yorgo Lanthimos fashion is hilarious and quirky, and the characters are so bizarre, but you can't help falling in love with them, no matter how fucked up they are. So, yeah, I mean, Jesse Plemons, Emma Stone, they're always a pleasure to watch. And this, yeah, absolutely unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And that's coming from somebody who's seen other Yorgo Lanthimos movies. He makes weird movies. This was still unlike anything I feel like I've seen before. And in this industry, that's hard to come by. I saw 100 movies this year. None of them were like this. Number 22, Companion. Now, this is an interesting movie for me because I definitely had some criticisms for it when it came out, but I still really enjoyed it. I think the criticisms do hold up in that, like, the first section of this movie, I feel like should have been the whole movie, or at least the majority of the movie, and is still my favorite part. But I did still enjoy the vast majority of this movie. I think some of the commentary, and I did make a video about this back in the day, was a little bit heavy-handed and a little bit, I don't know, it's like, it's a feminist movie as told from men, and I prefer when women tell the feminism analogies and stuff, because it just feels like it feels like it's coming from a better place. But I still really enjoyed a lot of the imagery attached to the commentary in this, and the cast is phenomenal. Between Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid, especially the two leads, they're both stars. This was like one long Black Mirror episode, but like a good one. You know how Black Mirror is pretty 50-50? This would have been one of the better ones. Number 21, The Long Walk. If I had a nickel for every time in 2025 there was an adaptation released of a Stephen King book about people who had to keep moving or they would die, I'd have 2 nickels, which it's weird. Also, both times, this, and obviously I'm referencing The Running Man, both times the ending in the book is dramatically better than in the movie, unfortunately, which is weird because, like I said before, I've said a bunch of times, Stephen King's usually the reason the endings aren't good, and then hopefully you can change in the adaptation to make the ending better. And maybe this was one of those cases where people knew that that was the tendency, so preempted the ending and changed it ahead of time, afraid that the ending would ruin it. But no, the ending was the best part in the book, and now it's not in the movie, so that's frustrating. But aside from that, I really enjoyed this movie. If the ending had been what it was in the book, this had a very real chance, a very real shot to be in like my top 5, because the plot is what it is. I mean, it's the same director as the Hunger Games, and you can tell it's the same kind of thing. Dystopian future, yada yada yada. It's a plot device for people to die and, be desperate and stuff. But, I mean, the cast, between Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson, but the rest of the kids, too, they're all either stars or stars in the making. I'd say Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson, they've already both been around the block a little bit. With the one already being in the Alien franchise, and the other being, a Nepo baby. But he's also just a really good actor, and he's been in some really big productions so far. So, both of them are already stars, but I felt like each and every one of the kids walking, I was like, all of these guys, future leading men possibly, they're all awesome. And, throw in Mark Hamill for good measure. He's always fun. And, the story, it's a bit of a beaten path, if you will. We've tread down this road before, but like I still love this kind of story. I'm still a sucker for it. And so yeah, between just an awesome cast that really elevated a story that could have gone one of two ways, honestly. Like, it could have been really good like it was, or it could have just been boring because it's just people walking. So all you get to see is people walking and talking, with the occasional person then therefore dying, and the stakes raise as you go because more and more people die at a faster rate, but like, it could have been boring, it's just people walking for a long time. But yeah, I don't know, this movie really worked for the most part. Like I said, I wish the ending had stuck to the book, it would have been even better. But that's my only real complaint. I mean, it's not entirely believable with how long and fast these people are walking, but still, it's definitely enjoyable, and a big part of that has to go to the cast. They did great. Number 20, Better Man. This year was actually a pretty good year for biopics, a genre that I am heavily critical of, but Better Man was unlike any other biopic I've ever seen before because it was artistic. And when have you ever seen a biopic that takes like artistic risks? I mean, first of all, the most obvious thing is that Robbie Williams is portrayed by a CGI monkey. That is a very bold choice to make, but it doesn't stop there. The imagery in this movie is so much fun. They don't portray things literally. It's often something that can be interpreted for how he felt in the moment, or what it felt like to him, or what it looked like to him. And, that's awesome. Between that and great musical and dance numbers, this is the same director that did The Greatest Showman, by the way. It's just so much fun. But it's also not always fun. It's poignant, and it's a tough watch at times, and I think a lot of that, it came from the benefit of having Robbie Williams so heavily involved in the project, which is something in the past that I said you can't do. Because of the whole Bohemian Rhapsody thing, I was like, if you want a biopic to be accurate, you can't have the people involved because they're just going to lie. It seemed like Robbie Williams, not that this is 100% accurate, but it seemed like he genuinely wanted to portray something real, at least real to him. I was, one of many Americans who, when they heard that there was a biopic about Robbie Williams, I went, oh, there's a movie about Robin Williams coming out? That sounds fun. Who'd they cast? And then it was like, no, a different guy. And by the way, he's a monkey. And I just went, what? I think most people, like me, probably would have skipped this movie. But I was very curious, mostly because of the monkey thing. And I came for the monkey, but I stayed for a legitimately really good movie. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen in this genre before, and it was a legitimately good and creative movie. Yes, he's a CGI monkey, but did I forget about that at a certain point in this movie? Honestly, kind of. Because the movie got me so invested and so interested, you kind of stop noticing that after a while. That takes talent. Number 19, Weapons. Weapons was a very interesting movie that, just like Zach Cregger's last movie, Barbarian, had a very strong turning point at a certain point. But instead of like Barbarian, where the turning point was early on, this was very late in the movie, where it went from one genre to an entirely different thing, and I loved that moment. Barbarian, I didn't love because it didn't, for whatever reason, work for me. And so I came into this movie very skeptical of Zach Cregger as a filmmaker and wasn't sure that I would completely buy into whatever he wanted to do with T-posing children. And I ended up being very impressed with it. I think some of the commentary, a little bit heavy-handed, giant gun floating in the sky and all, but I loved the filmmaking of it. I thought it was a very genuinely eerie movie where it creeped me out even with subtle things, like just the way people moved, or the way a shot was framed, or the way a door would open, like just stuff like that. Genuinely great directing, great filmmaking there, and the cast to boot is awesome. Like, I didn't even mention that yet, but I mean, everybody's awesome. Every actor, there's so many great actors in this movie, and if you haven't heard, the whole cast basically flip-flopped the year before they started filming. Like, it was supposed to be almost an entirely different cast, yet somehow the entire cast that replaced them was all great. So that was just a really lucky thing, I think. And this movie, it keeps you guessing on exactly where it's gonna go with it by the end. And then the ending is one of the most satisfying, fun scenes I've seen in horror ever, maybe. It's just so batshit insane and fun, and I had no real grasp on that coming, that was just such a fun twist that I was just like, that was great. So great visuals, great acting, and a fun twist at the end. What more can you want from horror? This really did a lot. And the commentary is fun too, even if it is a little heavy-handed at times. Number 18, Sinners. Ah yes, the movie that taught everybody in the world that Haley Steinfeld isn't completely white. Could have fooled me. Also, of course, Michael B. Jordan plays 2 roles in this movie, and he does it very well. The whole cast is very good. I mean, this movie, the imagery of it is a lot of fun. The music is great. It is also a horror movie with commentary, kind of in that same vein of like the kind of the Jordan Peele opened this box that has led to a lot of political social commentary horror movies, and Ryan Coogler is a very good director. I don't think he's made a bad movie yet, and this one is one of his better ones. I think it might be my favorite Ryan Coogler film yet. It felt like there was about 3 different genres in this movie, kind of like I was saying in Weapons. It felt like there was a turning point. This had a couple. The first section was so good that I forgot this movie was about vampires, but then it took another turn, and like I just said about Weapons, once again, it was one of the most satisfying scenes in horror history or any kind of movie history, where it's just like, what a scene, what a way to wrap up this movie. And of course there's tons of commentary in there, and it's all very well stated. And yeah, Michael B. Jordan is awesome. He needs to be in more movies. I feel like I almost never see him, and he should be everywhere. Number 17, The Phoenician Scheme. God, I love Benicio del Toro. He's another actor I don't see enough. I really just like, where does he go half the time? I feel like he's never around, but he's awesome. Of course, this is Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson's got an almost perfect track record. Don't want to say this is his best movie, but it's a very fun movie as always. He has really gotten into a pattern recently where he's got like commentary in his movies, which is something that I wouldn't have said about Wes Anderson a decade ago. I would have been like, man, he's very philosophical. I wouldn't have said that at all, but it feels like he's gotten to that point with his filmmaking where he's gotten very introspective and very self-reflective, and that's really fun, but it doesn't stop at all the comedy or the normal Wes Anderson shenanigans from ensuing. It's still the same fun comedy and bizarre action and cartoony feel that you always get from Wes Anderson, but now there's an extra element added where it kind of makes you think a little bit and maybe have discussions after the movie about what's being said. And for me, that's just a plus. So add all of that together with a great cast. Like I already said, Benicio del Toro's in it. It's got Michael Cera, Mia Threapleton, whoever she is. She was good. The whole cast was good. You know, it's Wes Anderson, so there's always going to be a bunch of cameos by great actors throughout, and they're all fun. I really love this plot. I really love this story and what was being said with it. And of course, I mean, it's Wes Anderson, so of course it's a good time. Number 16, The Woman in the Yard. Probably my most controversial pick. I'm well aware of that. I mean, I don't know anybody else who saw this movie that liked it other than me and Justin, who reviewed this together. I love this movie, though, because I think it's something that wasn't necessarily what the audience wanted. It didn't spoon-feed its commentary or its allegory. This is an allegorical horror movie, and I think most people tried to watch it literally. And granted, I think the best allegories you can watch literally and still be entertained by. This doesn't work that well that way. I think you need to be following the allegory to be entertained the entire time, or you'll kind of get lost and confused. But man, this movie's really deep. This movie really has some things to say, and it doesn't hold back from a really brutal ending and just brutal commentary on what it's like to be somebody with depression. That's what this movie's about, and how that affects both the person but also their family and those around them. It's got great visuals representing some really deep truths about that. So I don't know, it like I said, it's got a bad rating. It's got a 5 on IMDb. I think it's one of the best movies of the year. So if you haven't seen it, you've avoided it because of those negative reviews, or if you saw it, you watched it and feel like you didn't get it, I implore you to give it a chance. Watch it again if you've already tried it, and think about what it's saying. And don't take it literally at face value. Think about what's being portrayed. And if you still don't get it, come back and we can talk about it, because I made a whole video about what I thought the movie meant. It's creepy, the visuals are awesome, but it's also got a message that is... it's very powerful. Very powerful. Number 15, I'm still here. Yes, this movie came out in 2025. Don't give me shit for it. I couldn't see it until 25, so it counts as a 25 movie for me. So, yeah, this is based on a true story. It was actually the son of the main character wrote the book that this movie is based on, which it's just anytime you see a true story that is like from, the person who lived it, and they are showing just this raw, real imagery of just, man, a really tough situation, a really brutal story. Every criticism kind of has to take secondary value at that point, because you're like, man, sure, there's some filmmaking criticism, not a lot. This movie is an Oscar winner for a reason. I just don't even want to bring any of that up, because this movie it's so strong, it's so compelling, and it's one of those movies that, like, I probably will never watch this again, but I'm really glad that I watched it once, because it affected me. It changed my way of thinking about the world in a minor way, and I think that's something that I really value. So yeah, I wouldn't say one of my feel-good movies of the year, one of my favorite movies, can't wait to rewatch it again, but as far as, like, the importance of this movie, as well as the execution, because the execution is great, I thought, in particular, Selton Mayo, I think is his name. It's a double L in Spanish. So Mayo? Mello? I don't know. But Selton, I thought he was fantastic. And, the whole cast is, though. And it's just it's a tough watch, but it's worthy of a watch. Number 14, sentimental value. This movie's also hard to watch in a lot of ways, but because the characters, even though they are fictional, do just feel so real. There are arguments that are had, there are fights that are had, there are disagreements and discussions that feel like real people talking about things. They might not always make sense in their reasoning, but it sounds like a human's reasoning that would get to them to that point. And when they explain themselves, you're like, oh, okay, I see where they're coming from. And this movie is just, I don't know, I get super impressed when you're writing a movie that feels like it could be contrived, because, it's about a disagreement between a father and his daughters. So we're going to do this cliche, we're going to check that box, we're going to do all these things. No, we don't do any of that. And if we do, we'll make sure to do it in a different kind of way. But ultimately, we're going to make sure it feels authentic and real above all. We're not trying to make this appeal to the masses. We're going to make it tell a story that is worth telling. And it really succeeds at that, because these characters don't feel like caricatures. They don't feel like they're there to tell a story. They feel like they're there because they're real and they exist. And, even a character like Elle Fanning has a character in this where she plays an actress, and she could have been so over the top in her parody of how, these snobby actresses act or whatever, but she didn't go that way. She was still real, even in her kind of portrayal of this type of person. It still felt authentic and real, even though it was clearly based on some sort of stereotype. It won't be for everybody. It's kind of slow, it's kind of long, but, like, I don't know, I love that stuff. This movie really, really worked for me, and I hope it gets at least one Oscar. Number 13, Rental Family. Oh man, the Brendan Fraser resurgence continues, and I love every second of it. This movie, maybe fun's not the right word, because it's not exactly a happy movie, but it's such a great experience, and it's such a unique film too. I saw the trailer, and I kind of thought I could predict everything that was going to happen, and I thought it was going to be kind of contrived and predictable, and just, run-of-the-mill, seen this before. And it wasn't any of those things. I thought very little about it was predictable, and it didn't feel contrived at all. The characters felt real, and once again, the arguments or disagreements or opinions people had, it all felt authentic. It felt like real people going through these motions, not just characters that were there to fulfill whatever the writer wanted them to. So it really kind of took me by surprise. I expected to like it, but I liked it even more than I thought I would. And a big part of that is the cast. The cast is brilliant. I knew I've always loved Brendan Fraser, so I expected to love him in this. But the entire cast was great, and the characters, like I keep saying, they didn't feel like characters. They felt like people, and this felt like a true story that, like, even though I couldn't relate to the aspects of it, of like this guy living in Japan and not having a family or connections, I felt like there was a human connection between me and the characters anyway, even if I couldn't one-to-one, relate to any particular moment. it was just real and raw enough that I'm like, okay, but like I get it. Number 12, Eternity. Speaking of great casts, we have Miles Teller, Elizabeth Olsen, and Callum Turner all in this, oh god, awful three-way lover triangle thing. If you haven't seen this movie, it's split. Like, if you look on IMDb, it's got a 7, and then the critics gave it a 58. And I wholeheartedly understand and kind of agree with both, because it's weird that it's this high on the list, because I could go on for days with how frustrated I am with the lack of execution in certain areas. But, like, if it had been made to the best of its ability, it would have been far and away my favorite movie of the year. Because just the plot is so good, and the actors are so great. I think the script really is where it's kind of at its weakest, because it's such an awesome idea and concept that I wish it took itself a little bit more seriously than it did. It often cops out and opts into humor rather than substance, which is frustrating. But I mean, visually and emotionally, this movie does hit. And it knows at least when to take a step back from the humor and let a moment sit. I wish it did it more, but the moments it does do it are just so powerful. And this movie, yeah, it sits with you. This movie I'm going to be thinking about for the rest of my life now. I love it. I love everything about this concept, and the only thing, like I said, is I wish it took itself a little bit more seriously, but other than that, this movie is phenomenal. If it was just a straight drama and dropped the comedy aspect, this would have been a 10 for me. This would have been my favorite movie by far. It just, not everything has to be funny, guys. We don't all have to be the MCU. We can take ourselves seriously. It's okay. But yeah, just such a fun idea. Well, a torturous idea, but like I like being depressed. And this movie will really have you think about your life and think about your past and your future and where you're ending up. And that's a really fun thing for me. So yeah, I can't say enough good stuff about this idea. It was, oh man, I loved it. Number 11, The Life of Chuck. If I had a nickel for every time I saw a Stephen King adaptation with Mark Hamill this year, I would have 2 nickels. Yes, so this movie is another one that's going to make you introspective, make you think about your life, and it does a really good job of that. It also does it in a somewhat unpredictable way. When I watched the trailer, I kind of thought I knew where it was going, and then the movie was very different. You mix in a really good cast and a completely unashamed interpretation of these characters and this plot and what they were going for. Like, if they had at certain points blinked at all, or just hesitated or faltered at all in the delivery of a moment, it would have immediately devolved into absolute cringe and absolutely terrible moments. But they at no point took their foot off the gas. Like, there's this moment where there's like a big dance scene, and that moment could have been the cheesiest thing ever. But what made it not cheesy was they fully committed to the bit, and they fully believed in themselves and took it seriously. This is what I was saying, like in Eternity, they blinked. Life of Chuck doesn't blink. They full force believe in what they're saying and what they're committing to here and what they're trying to convey with this story. And that's what makes it brilliant. Was I've seen things like this before, but I've never seen it told like this before. And I just love that. And it shocked me that it came from Stephen King, because I don't know, I guess he does do introspective work like this, but I always think of the horror and kind of the silliness of his tropey writing and stuff. But like when he gets into his drama, obviously like Shawshank and The Green Mile and The Body, which got turned into Stand By Me, he can really write some moving pieces, some really emotional, powerful, introspective, philosophical work. And this is one of the best stories that I've seen come from King ever. And, I don't know that this is going to have the longevity or the life that something like, Stand By Me does have. But to me, it's every bit as good. It should be a classic. Will it be? I don't know. But to me, it is. It was great. And now we're getting into the top 10. Like I said, this has been a great year for movies. So many good movies. Normally, I do top 10 lists, and last year I did top 24, this year I did top 25, because there are just so many good movies. But these 10 especially, of course, are great movies that I really, really enjoyed and moved me in some way or another. So this is number 10. Is This Thing On? Holy shit, Bradley Cooper, thank you. Because, yeah, I reviewed Maestro back when that came out, and that was such a disappointment. Because, I mean, A Star Is Born was so good, and I love Bradley Cooper, especially, repping the Philly of it all. I love him. I love him as an actor. I love him as a director, and I wanted him to succeed. And Maestro just didn't really work. And now this did, because I felt like in every way it was the opposite of Maestro, where Maestro was pretentious, Maestro was insincere, and Maestro was trying too hard to be perceived as something. This just felt genuine. Like, it felt like earnest. Like, it just wanted to say something, and it didn't care how you took it, And a lot like the Sentimental Value movie, you've just got characters who are complicated, but they're real feeling and they're genuine. And there's moments in this movie that, once again, it could have gone cheesy. There's some stuff that's like rom-com coded, and it's like, this could have gone bad real quick, but it didn't. It still managed to be earnest enough that, like, it just felt authentic. Even in the cheesy moments, even in the moments that could have gone sideways so fast, it always worked. It never stopped working for me. This movie is funny. This movie is poignant. It's profound at times. And it's just silly at times. It is such a wide range of emotions that I felt during this that I was so happy that it felt like art, Bradley. So welcome back. You are officially, I think, one of the best directors working today. Oh, by the way, Bradley Cooper's great, both as a director, writer, and cameraman, and actor in this. But the rest of the cast too, I should point out. Will Arnett, Laura Dern, they're awesome. Everybody, the whole cast was great. So shout out to them. I mean, Will Arnett, I normally see him in comedies. I don't know if I've ever seen him in a drama before. I know BoJack Horseman. It's voice acting. It's a little bit different. But anyway, this, I think, is my favorite thing I've ever seen Will Arnett do. I thought he was awesome. It's one of my favorite things, if not my favorite thing I've seen Laura Dern do. So maybe that's Bradley Cooper's experience as an actor coming through in his directing, where he just gets really good performances out of his actors. Whatever it is, this movie was special. Number 9, Together. This is another allegorical horror movie that it's rated highly and all, especially by critics. Critics gave it a 75%. It's got a 6.7 from audiences. A little bit low, but still, I mean, horror movie ratings are always a little bit lower than they should be because it's such a subjective genre. But anyway, this movie, I think also the commentary was lost on a lot of people. I think because a lot of people, if you are the type to go into allegorical horror movies for the allegory, I think a lot of people, myself included, went in assuming one thing. And I think a lot of people ignored what was actually being said, insisting on what they assumed walking in was going to be the message. And it was not that at all. This movie, I said it in my review, is the most uplifting horror movie I've ever seen. Because this movie, yes, it's terrifying at times. It's disgusting at times. It's hard to watch at times. It's thrilling at others. But it ultimately has the happiest ending, the most optimistic take I have ever seen in any allegorical horror movie ever. Most allegorical horror movies are about depression or death or loss, just something really like drug addiction, just really depressing. And this movie is about love and fear attached to love. And I came away so happy afterward because, yeah, it was entertaining, but also it was such an uplifting message. And if you didn't get that out of it, watch it again and then think about it, because I really think this movie was lost on a lot of people. This movie's so good. And on top of that, I mean, visually it's awesome. Whatever effects they did to make them look the way they did, whether it was practical or CGI or a mix of both, it looked awesome. And then the acting, I mean, so it's starring Dave Franco and Alison Brie, who are a real-life couple, and they did awesome together in this. I think the whole cast was great, though. The imagery was, once again, awesome. Like, all of this marriage stuff, like wedding bells and church pews. Oh, it's so good. It's subtle, but also still very easy to follow. And then also, just had one of the most chilling jump scares I've seen in a long time. You know, jump scares are something a lot of people make fun of, but when they're done right, and they're good. And this one has one pretty early on that's like, whoo, get chills just thinking about it. So yeah, this one, right up my alley. Absolutely one of the best movies of the year. I don't care what you say. Number 8, J. Kelly. I may be overrating a little bit, I'll be honest, because I have a lot of criticisms for this movie with, some pretty contrived dialogue. The exposition is pretty rough at times. I think the movie is kind of meandering a little bit. It gets lost a couple times. Maybe does a little bit too much, maybe a little bit too long with some sidetracks and subplots with other characters. But ultimately what it comes down to is George Clooney, his story, and his performance. And it's not the best movie of the year, but it has my favorite scene of the year. Absolutely. The ending of this movie, I don't know the last time an ending of a movie evoked a reaction like this from me. Comparable to like Inception, which I saw Inception in theaters. This one I didn't. I saw it on Netflix. And so I had the ability to pause it, rewind, watch it again, and then get up, walk around the room, lay back down, and stare at the ceiling. Not many movies get that from me, but this movie really, good God, so it's written and directed by Noah Baumbach, and he has a way with just making you ask for another when he gut punches you. You're just like, one more, gut punch me again. And that's what this movie was a series of gut punches that, I'll be honest, started pretty soft. It seemed pretty, insignificant, pretty, unsubstantial. And then before you knew it, you were ready to throw up because you were getting hit so hard. And I didn't see it coming until it was just, it was brutal. And then, like I said, it blew my mind. And, if you're talking about movies on the impact they make from you, if that's how you rank movies, this movie made an impact on me. I genuinely thought about putting this number 1 because no movie impacted me like this one did this year. But it's not the best made movie. I think from an objective level, it's in the 6.5 range. But in how it affected me, it's like a 10. So you just meet somewhere in the middle. So I couldn't put it number 1. I couldn't put it above 8 in good conscience, but I thought about it. I really thought about putting it number 1 because no movie punched me like this movie did this year. What a scene, dude. Number 7, Train Dreams. This movie may be the most beautiful movie of the year. It reminded me of a Iñárritu movie because of just how beautiful the movie looked, and especially when looking at scenery, even having like conversations between two guys that are just sitting on the ground by some trees. It just takes every opportunity to make every shot as beautiful as possible with lens flares and trees, landscapes. It always looks as pretty as possible. It is such a gorgeous movie to look at, and it's got substance. This movie is another bit of a gut punch. It's got some hard-hitting philosophy. I really enjoyed the messaging of this movie. It really hit me in a certain way, and I think part of why it hit so well was because the cast was remarkable, and it got you so invested in each and every one of them that even these characters that you're seeing come and go for a couple of scenes at a time. William H. Macy is in this movie for 15, 20 minutes. And he stood out as my favorite thing about the movie because he was just, he left such an impact. And this whole movie is that way. I mean, it's starring Joel Edgerton and Felicity Jones, and they're both, they're awesome in this movie. I love both of them. So, it is truly a remarkable and remarkably beautiful movie, but it's also it's sad. It is a sad movie, and it's a slow movie. It's not going to be for everybody, but it certainly was for me. Number 6, Warfare. I've already mentioned a couple of times in this video talking about, things feeling raw or authentic or real. And what better way is there to tell something that feels raw and real than to have the person that lived it tell it to you? And so that's what Warfare is it follows a group of Navy SEALs in this awful, horrible mission gone wrong, and it tells it from the perspective of the SEALs, but also one of the SEALs actually co-directed this movie along with Alex Garland. And it is one of the most powerful war movies I've ever seen. And I mean, that's a long list of movies. War movies really get to me sometimes. Frankly, I avoid them a lot of times because I just don't want to deal with the emotional impact of them. But this movie just, it's like a sledgehammer repeatedly hitting you over the head, where it's just like, I can't believe people lived through this. I can't believe this happened to people. And it doesn't have any sort of like, I don't know, pretense. It's not trying to say anything other than just like, look at what happened, and it's not, fluffing it up. It's not making anything fun or pretty or whatever. It's just an unflinching look at this. Like, literally, the first scene is like these soldiers, they're all like watching a music video together or something, or like a workout video, and that song playing, they don't play like any music for the rest of it. I think until the credits, I don't think there's a score at all. And if there is, it's very limited, because it's just, you're just immersed in it. It's not trying to manipulate your emotions with a powerful swelling score or just like, really loud bass or anything. It is just the war. You're just there. You're just in the middle of it, and you can't escape. We are now going into the top 5. We've already had some really good movies on this list, but these are the absolute best movies, in my opinion, from this year. Just some really, really good movies that I just want you to know about. If you haven't seen these, what are you doing? Number 5, Presence. Maybe more of a filmmaker's film than the average person. You see, the critics gave it a 77%, and audiences gave it a 6.1. I would give it an 8. I thought it was even better than critics liked it. And I think part of that is my experience making films. It's like, sometimes you watch movies and you're just awestruck by the process that went into it. And unless you've done it, you don't get that. But aside from that, I don't think that's the only merit to this movie. I think there's some really powerful and special moments in this movie. And I think, in particular, the way they chose to execute those moments really makes them stand out. This movie is a lot of long shots. Like, it's almost like watching a stage play at times, because the scenes are continually one shot of just like the cameraman moving all around, which it's Soderbergh, by the way. He was the director, and he was also his own cameraman for at least most of the movie. I think maybe all of it. And it's just, if you don't know, the camera is like from the perspective of the ghost haunting this house. It's not a horror movie, it is a drama. Don't go into it expecting something scary, but it is just such a compelling, dramatic turn. I don't know. It's unlike anything I'd seen before. And that there have been stuff like this in a way. Like, Here was a movie where it's like you were kind of this stationary camera watching this room. And so the scenes, it was a lot of stage acting. And that movie didn't work for me. And so the fact that this did was really impressive. And also, I think the storytelling is just really compelling. Like, I don't know. This is, like I said, it's something that maybe to somebody who hasn't ever made a movie or edited a movie or written anything, maybe that's not going to stand out to you. But to me, this was just one of the most impressive movies I've ever seen. And on top of that, just a really powerful story too. Like, they could have told this story a traditional way and still would have really worked. And maybe it would have worked better for some people, because it's like, what's with the weird camera stuff? I don't care. For me, the camera stuff made it better. But even if they didn't do that, I would have loved this story, because it's unlike, I don't know, it's unlike anything I feel like I've seen before. To me, this movie was special. Number 4, A House of Dynamite. If you remember, I reviewed this movie with Justin back when it came out, and boy oh boy did we have some differing opinions. This was one of my favorite movies of the year, not him so much. And maybe once again, it's one of those things where you have to be a certain type of person to enjoy this, because once again, critics really liked it, 75%. I think it was even higher earlier in the year. I think it was in the 80s. And it's got a 6.4 from audiences. And people were saying that the ending ruined the movie. To me, the ending made the movie. I thought it was a good movie. I thought the ending was great. It's also, though, part of why Justin hated it, and I think why so many other people hate it. But to me, if this wasn't a straight-to-Netflix movie, if this had a theatrical release, and, like, I don't know, it had more of a prestige around it, like people were expecting something artistic like this. It's directed by Catherine Bigelow, a really good director, an award-winning director that for some reason doesn't really get talked about. And it's got a phenomenal cast with like Idris Elba and Rebecca Ferguson and a bunch of other people. If this had been directed, I said this in my review, if this was directed by Nolan, people would be praising that ending to no end. But for some reason, when you get it in a different context, people don't want to like it or call it pretentious or whatever. To me, I was just talking about Jake Kelly and how that was my favorite scene of the year or my favorite ending of the year. If not for that, this would have been my favorite ending of the year, because I haven't seen many movies like that either, where like I didn't have quite the same reaction, but I certainly just went like, oh wow, like I legitimately audibly said wow when the movie ended, because I was like, I wasn't expecting that, and that really impacted me. So once again, if you're talking about impact from a movie, it's hard to compare to this. Like, this one impacted me and made me like, it practically gave me like a existential crisis, I'll be honest, because if you don't know what this movie is about, it's about like impending nuclear doom. And I don't know, it got me thinking, man. It just got me thinking about life and how we live on a day-to-day basis, and like what could happen at any moment kind of thing. And I don't know, between that commentary and, like I said, an Oscar-winning director and an all-star studded cast, I don't know, it doesn't get much better than this. This was just such a good movie that, once again, I feel like got lost in the shuffle a little bit. Maybe it was the Netflix of it. Maybe it was, I don't know, people just not really getting it. I don't know. To me, this movie was so good. Number 3, Eddington. Ari Aster is not for everybody, but he's certainly for me. Also, I mean, the cast, Joaquin Phoenix, Emma Stone, everybody involved. Such a good cast, one of the best directors working today, and a movie that will certainly have you having an opinion. I described it in my review, I believe. I said something like, this is Ari Aster just saying, like, everything's fucked. The world's gone to shit. Everybody's crazy, and I feel like, I don't know, I like a good depressed view of the world. I think, I don't know, maybe people view this as bleak. I think it's kind of a coping for Ari Aster, where, you've seen his other movies where he's kind of just like, here's what my brain feels like. And I feel like that's what this is too. He's like, this is how I felt since COVID. It just feels like the world's insane and I can't do anything about it. And oh no, the wrong people are made famous. The awful people get away with whatever they do. It's just, everything's gone to hell in a handbasket. And I felt oddly comforted watching this movie, going like, thank you. I feel validated. Like, because that's how I've felt for years. It's like, the world is too insane to understand. And if you pretend you get it, I just can't relate to you. Because, I don't know, I feel like we're all just like, either in denial or pretending that everything's okay all the time. And that makes me feel insane. And so this movie, I feel like, really spoke as an inner voice for me that I didn't have the words for it. I was like, here you go. So, is it depressing? Is it nihilistic? Is it bizarre, as Ari Aster typically is? Absolutely, it's all of those things. That's why I love his movies. And so, yeah, sure, it's not for everybody. Critics and audiences both were pretty lukewarm on this, both in the mid-6s. I don't know. I thought this movie was great. I really did enjoy this. And it's another one of those movies that, like, I haven't been able to get it out of my head since I saw it. And I feel like that means something to me. Because you can be entertained by stuff, but then it's out of your brain and you're not thinking about it anymore. This movie, it's stuck there and didn't leave. When I first saw it, I think I put it around 10 on my list. And it just kind of slowly crept up and up and up the whole year until it ended up number 3. I honestly also considered putting this number 1, but I had 2 more movies that I think deserved the spots more. Number 2, Friendship. I cannot remember the last time I have laughed harder at a movie, and in particular, one scene in this movie, which, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm just gonna say the scene at Subway, because holy shit, this is ultimately one of the funniest movies I can remember seeing in recent history, but it is by far the funniest singular scene I've seen, I don't know in how long, because it's funny because, like, Tim Robinson, I've kind of, like, admired from afar but never really got into, because cringe comedy is not my thing. I cringe so hard that I feel physical pain when I see stuff like that. I don't like embarrassing stuff. I don't like cringy stuff. Not into that. This was so funny that it worked anyway, for me. It was absolutely one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. It has such a great cast between Tim Robinson, Paul Rudd, and everybody else. It's just a wonderful, quirky, strange film that had me laughing from start to finish. I can't remember, like I said, the last time a movie's made me laugh this hard. I don't typically put comedies high up in my end of year lists because I feel like it's so much easier to have a drama or a horror that like impacts me, but this movie has affected me in that like I quote this all the time still, and that came out months ago. It left an impact on me both in the comedy of it, but also the storytelling was surprisingly interesting too. Most comedies don't have good plots. And the plot of this, I wouldn't call it good, but there's like commentary though. It's like about the male loneliness epidemic, and I wasn't expecting that in this movie, but so it's like there's commentary too. It's a clever movie, not just because of its comedy, but in its actual what it's saying. And so this movie is legitimately a great movie, and even if it wasn't comedy, they could have made this a drama and it still would have been really, really, really good. But the comedy also happened to be just some of the funniest shit I can remember seeing. And the absolute number one best movie of 2025, according to me, is One Battle After Another. What do you say about One Battle After Another? I guess you can say, I love Benicio del Toro. He was so good in this movie. And another thing is just like, it's ingrained in my brain with the like, I had a few small beers, you know, but it's, everything he said was awesome. But also, it's one of Leo's best performances in years. Everybody, I felt like, Sean Penn, they were all elevated. I mean, it's a great cast on paper. Leo, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, everybody, they're all really good actors to begin with. But the script combined with Paul Thomas Anderson's directing led to them all elevating to a level that I can't remember the last time I've seen a movie with this many people deserving an Oscar. Like, I'm not saying a nomination, I'm saying an Oscar, because Sean Penn should win Best Supporting Actor. But Benicio del Toro should win Best Supporting Actor. Who's going to get it? I don't know. This is like, I feel like the last time I saw this was like Django Unchained, where like every actor in that deserved an Oscar. Movies like this don't come along very often, where it's just like, wow, you know, what can you say about it? Because what is the plot even about? It's such a weird story that if you told me what the movie was about, I don't know that I would be like, I'm interested at all in that. But in the hands of a filmmaker like Paul Thomas Anderson, which we've had our disagreements before, Licorice Pizza, I still hate you for that. But like, he is absolutely one of the best directors alive right now, and this cast is just a bunch of all-stars at their absolute best, working with a script that is completely elevating a story that, I don't know, to me, wasn't all that remarkable, like, on paper, but the script is so good that it became remarkable. It kind of reminds me of almost like, I mentioned Django Unchained, but like a Tarantino script, where it's like, you know, what is remarkable about a group of gangsters all holding out in this like safe house together? Or better yet, like, you know, Pulp Fiction, how do you describe that plot? What about that plot sounds interesting on paper? What makes it great is the way you decide to tell it. So between the writing of it and the directing of it, and then like I just keep saying, this cast and everybody, I mean, I already mentioned the top three, Leo, Sean Penn, Benicio, but like, I mean, Regina Hall's in it, Tiana Taylor, they're both gonna probably get nominations as well, from what I've been hearing. And then Chase Infinity, she, I think, deserves an Oscar nomination too. Like, the cast is just so good. Like, everything about this movie just works for me. How often do you watch a movie and like, sure, you can go like, oh, that's the best movie of the year, maybe, but do you go like, is that the best movie of the decade? And I don't think it is. We've had some ridiculously good movies in the 20s so far, but like, it's in the conversation. I think it's probably in the top 10 if you made a list right now. And yeah, I mean, so clearly it has to be the best movie of the year. When I get back to making a top 10 list of the 20s in 5 years or whatever, I'll be talking about this again, I'm sure. So yeah, that's what I had to think about 2025. Don't ever tell me they don't make good movies anymore, because they do. And if you don't think they do, you're not watching enough. I just listed off like 50, 60 movies that I enjoyed this year. There's good movies all the time. That's one movie a week worth watching. They're out there. So, like I said, that's why I had to think. What do you guys think, though? Let me know in the comments below what you guys thought. What were your favorite movies of the year? Why do you disagree with me and think that I'm completely wrong? Let me know all of that below, but please just be civil so we can have a conversation, because I do like talking to you guys. So thanks for watching, guys. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you're new here. Thanks, guys. Bye.